going to call the meeting to order, being 9 o'clock.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the agenda. I do want to bring up number 2 of the discussion items right after Rob's, just for convenience sake for our auditor.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of the minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Rob? Good morning.
In front of you, or I'm not sure if Shar has shared it yet or not, is a approval for a grant through the Minnesota Department of Veteran Affairs. The grant amount is in $10,000. It is money that we get before we spend it, so we do not have to be reimbursed back for it. So it's a type of grant that we like. The requirements are very straightforward. I have to maintain accreditation, which I am, so we're there, and training conferences, etc. So we are completely in compliance with it right now. There is a resolution that would need to be passed as part of this grant, and then the grant applications, there's 3 of them actually, that if the board approves it, we'd need signatures that we would get a signed copy to Shar afterwards with. Again, it's through Department of Veteran Affairs. This is the second year that we've done this. There's a recent legislative grant that was put into place. We've used it in the past for marketing, outreach, etc. One of the things we've talked about the last couple of years is looking at replacing the van, the veteran's van, because it's at a point mechanically and mileage-wise it would be smart to do it. So my recommendation is once the funds are in, I would actually like to start shopping for possibly a good used van, low mileage, with $10,000 towards it. That can really take a major chunk out of it and would keep the county's cost at a very, very minimal if the board felt that would be appropriate. So,
Yeah, you talked about that before, and Shar did give us the information ahead too.
okay. So
I move to approve the grant application.
I'll second it.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
all right.
Okay,
Good job, Rob.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Me too.
We'll see you later, right?
Yep. 10:15, I believe.
Yep. And then, yes, we're moving up the discussion item number 2, adopt resolution approving gambling license for Camp Winnebago.
I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution adopting a gambling license for Camp Winnebago.
A second.
Any other discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We're going to keep Shar very organized today.
Like she's not every day.
I was going to say,
Michelle's gone today, so I really need to be organized.
Okay, Brian.
Morning, Commissioners. I'd like to request the board finals out contract SAP 28-996-018. This is a project that was half flood related to 2007 floods and half state aid funds that were not, sections of the roadway that were not damaged. It's done by the Root River. The original contract amount was $726,932.29. The total project ended up being $936,647.51. So the total cost ended up being a little over $200,000 above the estimate, or above the original contract. And the reason being is once we got into the project, we had some more flooding and water issues and stuff down there. And I spoke with the state, the one section of the roadway that always overtops. It's had issues in the past with different pavement sections washing out. The original contractor was going to repair the worst area that had the washing, and we decided to increase the concrete pavement section from about 500 feet up to 1,000 feet. So that additional 500 feet worth of concrete pavement, along with some concrete mattresses and stuff that goes on the downhill side to keep future erosion going in, impacting the adjacent landowner's field, ended up bringing the cost up to about $200,000. So these costs were covered between legislative bonding for the flood funds and additionally state aid funds. So there isn't any additional local cost, but it was obviously quite a change on the construction side. So if you have any questions, I can explain more, but that's pretty much entails the entire overages plus some additions. There was some other areas we were able to save a little money on the project as well. So.
Why wasn't the flooding part of it addressed by FEMA?
This is a roadway that FEMA helped. Actually, on this roadway, FEMA didn't cover any of the damage, so the state of Minnesota had funds they put aside to repair this, or to repair and to make some slight improvements to it. The damage that happened in 2007, which was when the flood bond came into effect, was different than what's happened since that time. This roadway overtops. Some years it overtopped once or twice, other years, a couple years ago, it overtopped, I think, 4 or 5 times, maybe 6 times. And the area that overtops usually is contained within a stretch of about that initial 500 feet. But then when you get into larger events, it spreads out wider, it's really flat down there. So with the initial approved amount, it was to what got damaged in 2007 floods. So it wasn't really the full length.
Move to approve the project?
Second?
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Ryan, I have just one question. What's going on with County 8? I know we've talked. Sorry.
Okay, I'm going to give updates about County 8 and County 5. County 8, the contractor was hoping to put down the remaining of the gravel yesterday. I don't know if they got it completed or not. So the gravel surfacing on the roadway should be done by now. If it's not, it'll be done within a matter of hours. They have 3 days worth of work remaining is what I anticipate on doing the approaches on the side driveways. Some of those has more gravel to be put on. And then we'll need to put in chloride on the roadway, keep the dust down. And then besides that, it's primarily just finishing up a little bit of ditch work and doing seed mulch, erosion control matting, the erosion control prevention stuff. So the work on the roadway itself, I'm hoping, is done by this week. So that is just, is the contractor willing to open up the roadway to traffic prior to all the seed and mulch and stuff off the roadway? They're concerned that you start kicking rocks at the employees and you have all the equipment sitting on the roadway, you have hay bales on the roadway, and it's not going to cause a safety issue. So as far as when it's going to open, I was hoping to get it open prior to Labor Day. I'm still pushing for that. But the reality is it's probably going to be another week out. Any questions besides that? Some of it's weather dependent, especially with this rain. Couldn't do any erosion control work yesterday. Everything was too wet. It's probably going to be too wet today to do most of the stuff. So as long as we have a few dry days, we'll get that stuff done. County 5, I know there's been some questions and calls on that. That's getting real close. I'm pushing to get that opened up midweek this week. I tell them worst case, we're going to get it opened up on Friday. They want to have it open up prior to this weekend. 3-day weekend, there's no reason to keep it shut down. Yesterday was a really busy day out there. They did striping out there. They did poured the sidewalk and some concrete, driveway apron and stuff. The city's installing their light poles. They're putting in the power going to those poles yesterday. Not sure if they're going to get that finished up today or if it's going to be another day or two. But we're getting close on that end. We have a little bit of earthwork that's going to be done tomorrow, and then it's just a little bit of seed mulch afterwards. So I'm hoping that after we get that earthwork done, get the skid steer and the dozer out of there tomorrow, we can open it up and let the final seeding be done, whether it's this week or next week with traffic on the roadways. So the two big projects affecting traffic pretty much all summer are both near completion.
Good.
When will you start on County 4 through Blackman?
The contractor told us they plan on, initially it was going to be the Tuesday after Labor Day next week. I'm not sure if it's still on that or if it's going to be, it was potentially going to get pushed back depending on the time frame for the milling contractor. I haven't heard any updates. I'm not sure if my staff have or not. So they'll be starting, if not next week, within the following couple weeks.
How long will it take them to do it? Will it be done before snow flies?
The total project, Matthew is telling us they're going to be done by November 1st. So, and that'll be paving, milling on 4 and 9, and then paving both roadways. So they're going to do, County 4 is going to be milled first, County 9 is going to be milled second. And when they're milling County 9, they'll start paving on County 4, and then they'll continue their paving operations on 4 over to 9. So it'll be, a couple months worth of impacts. But that will be open to traffic the whole time. There will be some delays with flaggers and stuff, but we get through.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Come on, Mark. We have a short agenda this morning. It's been a long process getting through all of our hiring and staffing for the jail this year, but I think with this step, we have completed our goals that we had set. So we're recommending the hiring of A.J. Bird as a probationary half-time jailer dispatcher at a step 1 at a wage of $19.29 per hour effective September 1. And all of our background checks came through, and we're very happy to offer A.J. this position. Would you like to say something about his experience with the city?
He's freshly out of school pretty much. He's been working, helping out with the city, the police reserves in town here. He's been working at Quillins in town here, and I went to school. Younger kid, but very trainable.
He has a criminal justice degree, and a 2-year criminal justice degree. So this is a career path fit for him. So we're very happy to make this offer.
And what was AJ replacing?
He's not, as you recall, we had take 3 of our halftime persons filled our 2 of our halftime persons filled our 2 full-time positions, and then we're looking to go back and search for those halftime vacated positions, and this is one of those.
And then you said starting at September 1st.
Sorry, September.
When, September 1st?
September 1st, yeah.
He seems like a good kid. Seems like a
Yeah,
a
he's
young
a local
guy.
person.
Yeah, he's always been in school and he's been looking, trying to find something.
Right.
I move to approve.
Second.
Further discussions or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. Secondly, we've been in negotiations with the 49ers for 2014. And one of the items that we talked about at the last meeting that we had was to start narrowing and we've had a meeting with VMS, and we started talking about narrowing our focus as to what our issues are, and BMS some time ago had lifted the stay of, us making any changes to their pay or position. So with that lifted, one of the items that we did offer was saying that we will go ahead and implement the 2014 wage changes that we did on behalf of all the other employees of the county. And with that in mind, we still have two very critical issues that we're talking about, and are still a ways apart in other matters. But with that in mind, I respectfully request that we go ahead and take care of this one item.
And this was part of the negotiation, so we're,
Is this the ones Justin
It's
and Steve were in? That-
It's something that has not been, yes, it's something that hasn't been on the table. Remember, we have not had this as an ongoing issue, so we determined as an offer of good faith on our side to, we talked about this at the last meeting that Commissioner Chumley attended.
That's right.
And so, since this has not been an issue at all for either party, we're trying to make this as an offer of good faith. We do have other significant issues that we still are wrestling through.
I'll make a motion to go ahead with that.
Second.
Further questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yesterday, we received information back from the Minnesota Counties Intergovernmental Trust. It was delivered to the county auditor's office, issuing a check in the amount of $723,210.64. As I had mentioned in the budget meeting yesterday, there is some follow-up that I really need to do prior to us endorsing and cashing that check, as far as looking at some of the cost estimates and some of the replacement value estimates. As, let folks know that that is in process. Also, I had a visit from a gentleman by the name of Mr. Rich Orth, who is with Simple Living Farmers Market, which is a member of the Minnesota Farmers Market Association. And they have, this is just an information item, they have approached us with a request to use our parking lot that is behind the, that's north and west of the County Community Services Building for a farmer's market on Tuesdays next season. And I need to speak with Jamie, the county attorney, as well as the finance director, and about this. It would be for a rather nominal amount in all likelihood. And I do have assurance that they have more than the required liability insurance, and have documentation of that. But I'd just like to know the board's feelings on whether I should go forth and continue the discussion with them or not. I looked at usage for the parking lot, and it really is at a very minimum. And I understand that Community Services has a public health directors had conversations with Quillens that when there's overflow, that there's an informal arrangement that our staff uses their lot on weekdays, and that hasn't been a problem. So as I've been driving by, you don't see the lot used right now. We would not have to really do any maintenance. They said that they would, if there's any weed removal that needs to be done within the parking lot itself, because it's gravel, they would try to attend to that. We certainly would present it, continue our general maintenance we do. It would be one Tuesday a week from 4 till 7, from about mid-April through October 31st.
Do you know how many people would be using it? Any ideas?
I don't know how many vendors they have.
Yeah. I tell you what, I talked to, Ted with the city of Caledonia, and they were wondering if it could be used to park campers, boats, things that are normally parked on the street. to get them off the street. I checked with Brian at the county engineer's office, and he was okay with it because it's literally not being used. But I haven't seen anything else go in there. I guess I cautioned Ted that we don't want to, they can't be permanent.
Well,
You know,
the one
nobody-
thing I would say that has to be checked out is the liability issue. And it's one and would it be use of public property for private use with no fee? The other is a nonprofit that might, there's all sorts of issues out there I need to flesh out with the county attorney. I don't have all the answers to that. I certainly will follow up on that, though,
Okay,
Commissioner.
but nothing's been showing up out there either, so.
I will follow up on that and how what our liability would be. Do we have a contract with the city? Do we contract with all those individuals separately? There's a lot of.
I know there was too, that it could be used for people that carpool. They could park vehicles there, carpool, head from across. There's a lot of cars right now parking.
And that would be a public good.
Yeah, along the street next to a Quick Trip.
I'd rather see it used for that than campers and boats.
Oh, yeah.
Because if we open that up, then every city's going to want to use county property to park boats and campers.
And I guess
We're going to run into so many requests. I don't really want to open that up.
I don't like the idea. They'll end up being there a long time.
Well,
Some
are
people
these
just plain.
city boats and
No,
city?
they're public that are parking.
But that
on the
raises a whole
streets.
different,
Mhm.
a whole different set of questions as well, as I previously mentioned. And the level of lighting that might have to be supplied and security, because we're talking overnight. I don't know, I'll check them all out.
I like the idea of the farmer's market though on
Yeah, I do
Tuesdays.
too.
We have one in La Crescent that's very, very successful. It's not extremely busy as far as hundreds of cars or anything like that, but it's steady from 4 to 7.
They feel it would give them more exposure.
Where is it now?
Right now, they've been, the city has been allowing them to use property down by the gazebo. And when there was music in the park, that seemed to make sense. It doesn't seem to make sense for them right now. The Director of Public Health, I spoke with her, and she welcomed the idea because of the health, trying to piggyback on some of the health issues.
They'd get more exposure along the highway too.
But I do need to run this past the county attorney and flesh out some issues as to working with a nonprofit, et cetera. And whether this would be appropriate use of county property. And I believe that's all I have for you today, Commissioner.
Sounds good, thank you.
Thank you.
Ann and Ron? Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Well, thank you for allowing us to come and discuss our budget for 2015. And I believe you've all got a copy, maybe to take a look at for the oncoming year. And just wasn't sure if you wanted me to start going down through it a little bit, or if you had a chance to review it, had some questions, or how you would like to approach it.
I think the first thing we had on was about that aquatic species program.
Right. I've been working with Ann a little bit on that, and when the draft came to you, we didn't have, hard plans yet for that. I know Ann's been putting together some kind of work plan, and at this point, we're not so sure yet how much will stay with the district and how much we'll be using on projects and stuff, so it's kind of hard to incorporate that into this budget, but we do believe it will be a part of it as we move forward and put some plans together.
Do we have to get plans back to the state for how we're going to use it?
I think that's the
I've been trying to figure it out a little bit, but there's not a lot of information out there.
I've gotten very little information as well.
Carol seems to have something.
The law actually says that the county must establish by resolution or through adoption of a plan guidelines for use of the proceeds. And, you know, it has these certain things that it has to include, and each county must submit a copy of its guidelines for use of the proceeds to the Department of Natural Resources by December 31st.
By what date?
December 31st.
Yeah, because I knew the date was December 31st, but I didn't know for sure.
So if they are working on a plan as to how they're going to use the funds, that would be what we submit along with a summary of how it actually panned out at the end of the year.
And Ann's had some really, she's had some really good stuff she's been putting together as far as getting out the information on billboards or having speakers come down and various things that we've been talking about. So.
Good.
But the board will need to approve that plan before.
Right.
Before December 31st.
No, actually, before they start.
Before we start implementing
using
it.
the
Oh,
funds.
yes, right.
We won't actually transfer the funds to them until you approve the plan of how those funds are going to be spent.
So that's why it was kind of hard to get into our budget, because we really didn't know where we were at with that thing for sure. How we get that approved.
I also think Teresa meant that on the agenda, the aquatic species discussion was coming before the budget. She didn't mean have you incorporated that.
No, exactly right. I'm just,
If you look at the agenda, that was the first thing on there, was the aquatic species discussion.
So now we kind of know what you're looking at, and then just,
I've started putting together a draft plan, so we'll get her as quickly as we can.
sounds good.
and the second thing on my line item here is the Root River 1 watershed plan.
Yes.
Yes.
Ann and I have been really actively involved in that. We've got meetings again tomorrow on that, and we're just getting started with that. There's a lot of opportunity there, I think, down the road for Houston County to be incorporated into that one watershed, one plan, especially when it comes to seeking clean water grant funds and being able to do more conservation work, flood work, et cetera, water quality stuff in the county. So we're just getting off the ground here, but we know well in advance this is going to take many meetings. And Ann has volunteered to be on several of the committees putting this thing together. So we're looking at a lot of travel, a lot of meeting time, and just a lot of plan development on that. So we noted that in our budget here that we've got a couple things probably coming up on the plate that are going to pull the district staff in maybe a little bit of a different direction, including industrial mining, things that may be coming up. And we want to assist the county in any capacity that we can, because we feel that's the work that we do. Some of that stuff is important, whether it's on reclamation planning or whether it's on monitoring possibly of some of these sites or reviewing plans, taking in additional meetings. So the budgets that we've prepared for the last couple of years, we've got our employees sitting there just about bottleneck right up, answering to hours that we need to put in on different grant applications that we've got. It's conservation work in the county, but we're just about to the limit. So we're trying to look for a little bit of freedom here to allow some more hours for employees to free their time up to work on different issues. Recently, we put on Michelle Bowman. She's half-time, so we're currently up to 4.5 staff now, and we're going to have another conference call tomorrow on another program. We're going to be putting on another employee half-time, so we'll be back up to our 5 employees here, probably in short order, and just trying to answer all the need that's out there. The employee that we're discussing tomorrow is actually going to be a technician that will be doing a lot more work in that Bee Duck Creek watershed, and because landowners in that watershed have asked for assistance, and we have not been able to answer to them, so we're going to be putting on our half-time employee.
See, I even know what you're talking about now after your tour.
Yeah, a lot of good work, and we've got a lot of interest by landowners out there to apply additional conservation practices out there. Yeah. Landowners will only ask so many times before they kind of, they get retired, wore down a little bit, you know, you can't make it to them. So we want to get to them. We want to make sure they get those conservation practices on the ground and work with them to do some good planning.
Good.
On the revenue end, and I know you've had a chance to take a look at it, if there's anything on there that sticks out, that's complicated, what we've done just as of late too in the last year or so, we've actually had some funds shifted into designated accounts. Some of these monies used to sit in our general operating balance, and we decided that we needed to sort those out, especially for our maintenance issues and stuff like that, because the commissioners have taken on the O&M on both the Winnebago watershed and the Bear Creek. And we've had those discussions that down the road there could be some significant work needed on those big flood control structures, so we needed to take that money and set that aside in the special designated reserve accounts. We've also got designated reserve accounts for our Havel buffer program and for capital purchases and employee benefits once they retire and stuff like that. So we shifted some funds into other categories. Our current, it's hard to really pinpoint a monthly current operating expense for the district, but it usually falls in around this $35,000 a month just to do business, to pay our rent, to pay all the employees, to keep everything going. And we like to have a cushion in that fund balance to take us 6 months down the road in case something surfaces, that we can certainly give the employees enough time to adjust to what could be coming. We were at a point approximately 3 years ago where we were talking about furloughs for district employees because we couldn't operate under our current budget. At that time, we were fortunate enough to join into a couple of grant agreements with the Nature Conservancy, and we have relied on them for the past several years to the tune of $250,000, $250,000, which is significant. I mean, that kept all our employees going, doing work in the county. That will sunset now. This coming in 2015 will be the last year for that grant. And we're not, I mean, Anna will be searching, she'll be looking every day, she'll be looking for a new opportunity there, but again, our budgets are stretched, and I'm sure you hear it from every department when they come, but I'm just letting you know that we do a lot of grant work, and that's been keeping us going lately, and there's a lot of work to be done. So, but I do appreciate the support we've had in the past, and if you've got any questions, I'd be glad to entertain those or answer them.
I think you guys do a good job.
We do, you know, Judy, we've got a lot of programs going. You know that. All the commissioners know that. I tried to send out a kind of an informal letter to the board here several months back, just to share with you all the different hats we wear in the county and all the things that we do. And we're not trying to say, you know, that we're overloaded or anything like that, but we do serve the residents in the county in a large capacity. We are the first point of contact in many cases for natural resource issues. And when they come in the door there, we service that workload. We don't leave any of them go out without good information or feeling that we're sending them someplace else. We take care of their questions, guide them through the process.
And I think it's good that you have that communication with us so we understand what's going on out there too. I think it's really an important part. And I couldn't bring my convertible today, so I'll have to catch you another day.
Yeah. We are involved on the block grant with the county in several different issues, whether it's on the feedlot stuff, whether it's on the Wetland Conservation Act program, and also with the water plan. So we are very actively involved there. And that partnership has been good. It's been just a great thing to be able to go into that office, share with them, you know, on this work detail, work those items out. We end up going out in the field a lot with both Bob Scanlon and Rick Frank and Brian, the county engineer. And so our partnership there with the county has been strong, and it's much appreciated. This will probably be the last time that I get to sit in front of the board here, so I just want to commend you on the work that you have been doing. I think this board is doing a great work, and the work that you're doing is good, and so you should be very proud of your accomplishments.
Thank you. I don't hear that too often.
Well, I work with you all on a
We think
personal
you're
basis.
doing a
You know,
great job.
I'm on different boards, and I get the small sideline conversations from all of you, so I know what you're up against, and I know you've all got a different approach sometimes on different issues. However, I appreciate that, and so you do take a good, broad overview and try to stay the course on what your beliefs are, and that's good. And good discussion and good debate is helpful. And so I have a lot of respect for this board and a lot of trust.
We're going to miss you too.
So that's all I have, unless you've got.
So you are asking for a little bit more in your
We
budget?
are, yes.
Mainly because of the Conservancy
Yes.
grant ending sunset?
Because of the
No?
increased workload, so that we can loosen up some of the hours for
Okay.
the employees, that they don't have to answer to a lot of the grant programs. And we're also trying to scratch our way back a little bit to where we were at one point. I mean, I put that down there just for your information there. And then, of course, I noted just a couple items that we would be spending more time on, and I feel it's important that we do spend time on those items. So yes, it is a significant in for one agency to ask. I didn't work the percentage out. It was 6 or 7 or 8. I'm not sure exactly what the percentage rate is on the increase, but that is what we're asking for today.
I think you all have the budgets in front of you. Any questions?
Appreciate it, Ron.
You're in good hands here, too. That I can tell you in earnest, because I've worked with Ann now for a little over a week, and you'll be in good hands and very knowledgeable person.
That's good.
Congrats on your retirement.
Thank you.
Thanks for your hard work.
Thanks.
And Ron, you also mentioned to me the other day about needing a commissioner on that Watershed 1 project. Is that the one you need
Yes.
a commissioner?
Yes, I don't know if we've had it up for an item today, but yes, we are going to be
I had
asking.
mentioned it to Dana, and he said he talked
We
to you
talked
also.
about it.
And that'd be great, you know. I know Dana has been very active on our water plan committee and has a lot of interest there in that. And yes, we will be needing a board member on that policy committee.
And that way it'll be in the minutes that Dana volunteered to be on.
I'm glad to do that.
Like, Ann's going to be putting a lot of
Let
time.
me know when the meetings are coming.
I certainly will.
And Dana will have input too. It's just going to be so important, even though, if you remember, we just had finished up our 5-year revision on our water plan, and we had an implementation schedule in there that identified various projects, but this one watershed, one plan is going to even get more involved in that, and we need to take, or I guess the Houston County and Ann, we need to take another look at the items that were identified in that implementation schedule and further clarify, further call them out as far as identifiable items. If you're going to want to put in 1 or 2 flood control structures, major flood control structures in Houston County, they need to be identified in that one watershed, one plan. And I think as being a pilot on this, they're going to see to it that funding will come for these pilot projects, and if this one does not succeed, then there are chances of having the rest of the people fall into these one watershed, one plans that isn't going to work for them, so they're going to want to see this one succeed. So I really believe the money will be coming on this, and it may be 2016 or 17 before there's any construction money or anything like that, but it will slowly be coming. And
Is that a federal program?
state.
State, okay. Does the federal have anything to do with it at all?
We've had some discussions, you know, with FEMA,
Yeah.
and they also want to talk more to Houston County and some of the other counties that have been prone to flooding about putting additional flood control structures in before the damage occurs.
See, FEMA was down about a month ago, you must have met with them at that time.
I was gone that day, but Dave Walter did, and he
Okay.
brought the information back, and they want to have more discussions on that.
Okay.
And if that happens to come to fruition, that also is a great thing. We tried to do that several years ago, and we just hit a roadblock on it, and they didn't want anything really to do with putting in flood control dams, and now they've kind of changed their tune on that a little bit. If they can identify the structures that would really help your infrastructure, your bridges, your roads, so that they don't have to come down every time there's a 6 or 8 inch rain that happens in Houston County and fix it again, and fix it again, and fix it again. And we've already got a map put
Yes.
together in a couple of those watersheds and identified some of those structure sites that would be significant value.
I've learned a lot from you the last few years. And I can see how important it is to prevent the damage to begin with, rather than fixing those roads over and over.
Yeah, we had a really good discussion with David's when we were up to our day on the Capitol about that very issue. We thought it was interesting how it seems like they can usually find money for
Yeah,
flood assistance after the flood.
I know.
It'd be nice if they could find it before the
Yes,
flood.
very much so.
And he said, point well taken, so.
Good. Yep. So, any other questions for Rod or their budget for 15? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, consent agenda. Notice of credit on account at La Crosse County Waste to Energy account. I believe you all saw that.
Mhm.
Correspondence to South Wiedemann regarding abatement. South. Yes, Steve. Abatement. Notice, public notice of special budget meetings. Correspondence to payroll regarding recent changes. Correspondence from Minnesota Department of Education regarding the certification of the minimum local support requirement. And the Minnesota Department of Public Safety notice to exercise option to extend the lease through 9/30/2016.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Roxanne, issue updates? We'll continue to work on our study group. We have one again next Friday due to the Labor Day holiday, 9 to 11 or something like that. Highway Department repair building costs.
Nothing new that I'm aware of. Unless Steve's got it here.
No, nothing new.
And Tess already updated us under the courthouse store jail.
Yeah.
Commissioner reports. Dana?
Not much. I attended Ron's retirement, nice party over there in the 75th anniversary Saltwater. On Thursday, I think, I attended that.
Just a Fraxon meeting yesterday. Was the only thing. Real quick, going back to the jail thing. I was just looking at the numbers, which I find it funny that they docked $400,000 for I don't know, like, I would have to question a lot of that.
Yeah, I hope
Yeah,
you guys would have
we're
to do
really
it.
I find that
Yeah.
disappointing, too.
Well, the fact that it said, well, here's the replacement value, well, we're gonna dock it for depreciation, but we're not gonna go and put used sheetrock back up and 80-year-old board, so it's like you're docking us, but that's why we have replacement value. I don't know, it's just a little disappointed they're trying to dock that much, so. Anyway.
It's insurance, huh?
Oh, yeah,
Sounds like
exactly.
Tess is working on it.
Yeah, so
Tessa
hopefully we
said
get
she
that
is
sorted.
working on it.
Yeah.
I think that's why we're holding the payment for now.
We're not cashing the check, yeah.
Anyway, that's it.
And I was at the open house around too. That was pretty good. It was nice. Nicely done. Budget meeting yesterday and not much of anything else.
Same for me.
Ditto.
yeah, I had the same thing, Ron's retirement and 75th anniversary of Soil and Water too, I guess we
Oh,
should
yeah.
include that. And I had the study group and then budget meetings. Also, tomorrow I'm heading to St. Paul for the state extension meeting. I'm on that advisory board. It's an all-day meeting from 10 till 8 that night. And I gotta somehow get to the fair and get those cheese curds.
There you go.
I saw them on TV this morning, they look wonderful. And also, just a reminder, next Thursday is that MCIT workshop in Rochester on open meetings and everything. I don't know who's all going, I know I'm signed up for sure. And also next week is policy meetings up in Alexandria.
I'm going to
And
those.
Judy's got hers. I don't know if anybody else is attending that, but I did want to remind you about that MCIT one for commissioners.
Is anyone else going up for policy? No, just me?
I guess I hadn't planned on it.
That MCIT one, I think, is what, 9 to 3?
I'm doing the one that's in Mankato, if you guys can't do the one on the 4th.
The one in the 4th is in Rochester.
Great, but I can't do that one, so I'm doing the one that's in Mankato the next week.
Okay, what's
It's a in and out, which one are you looking at?
It's that one we keep getting,
What is the topic?
regional risk management.
What's
and
that all about?
It's on the open meetings
Open
and,
meeting law?
It's got a lot of different information.
yeah, I think everybody got a bunch of these over
I
there.
went to that last year.
Oh, did
It
you?
was so good. Yeah, they have really good speakers and it's a lot of knowledge. It's a lot of different workshops.
Anyway, we do have several options close by.
The one in Mankato is which day?
Mankato's is, Marshall's the 10th, Mankato's September 11th.
Yeah, September 11th, I'm going out to Mankato if anybody wants to go to that one.
Okay, other than that. Group Claims Human Service License Center disbursements.
Had a question on that one.
Yeah.
Char, maybe you know this. What is the, or I guess Carol's here too, 6411, what department is that?
That's an M code, what's, you have to go over the other side.
Okay.
Um,
Judy, throw me that real quick. The only reason I asked is just, I was looking up, it looked like one of these was the sheriff's department, but I was just wondering if something got crossed over here because,
Is it 201 or 251?
no, 105.
105 is, who's that?
No, I'm sorry, 523.
That's parks.
Oh, yeah, that's Wildcat.
Okay, so then, here's another question. Then why did we have, okay, never mind, it was the N code that was the same. Because one of them was for the sheriff's office, but it had the same N code, and I'm like, why is the sheriff's
The N
department getting
codes are the same.
charged
code.
for cement? And then there was inmate vests or something, and I was like, okay, why, this doesn't jive, but never mind, it's the front
Yeah,
codes.
it's the front codes you can
Yep.
look at.
Yep,
Good have
yep,
this
got
guy
it.
in.
Just wanted to make sure nobody was getting charged in their account for something that they didn't,
Yep.
that they didn't do. So,
Oh.
excellent.
Speaking of the jail, we had law meeting this morning, and last week alone, they had 10 inmates from Winona. And the Cross is also finalizing the
The
plan.
contract is in
We
the
get paid for that?
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. So they just had a lot of people and needed a spot to come to.
Was that Winona County or Winona City?
White
Winona
County,
County.
yeah. I thought that was interesting this morning, that, you know, because we always say we'll take from other counties, but we haven't had much opportunity. So that's a good thing.
Yep.
Oh, another thing we need to bring up is research fees. Sure, that was brought up, that, is there something in our policy somewhere, how much we can charge for research to look at emails, et cetera?
There
Yeah.
is.
Andy was telling me.
Yeah, the way that was set up years ago goes way back to when Tim Comstock was here. And we set it up that we charge the very lowest amount of any employee in the county.
Okay,
There's a lot of question whether that should be that way because of the email thing, for example. Not just the lowest employee can be that, you need someone like Andy who's paid
Mhm.
that higher wage. And why are we only charging that small amount when it's actually costing us a lot more than that?
Was it, was it worded the lowest of any employee, or was it the lowest of any employee that can do the duty?
Well, the way it was set up years ago was the lowest of any employee. We just chose, and it was with benefits and everything, it's like $26 and something. But
Jamie wanted that information. She had heard too that it was the lowest paid,
yeah.
and yet we can't.
Can we put that on discussion
For
for
next
next
week,
week? And then
yeah.
you can bring that to
Bring some
our
information.
attention?
Because maybe we have to
Talk
look at
about
that a
it.
little bit. It's been a long time.
But I understand, Andy and I talked about it quite extensively yesterday, and just the time
Exactly.
it takes for him to do it, that he's getting taken away from his other duties
I
just
know.
for a request.
Right.
So it's like then if somebody requested something really vague and it took them 3 months, now you're backtracking regular work plus the other work that,
Right.
it was an issue that he was concerned about that.
Yeah. And Jamie brought it up at law meeting again that we need to look into that.
Good.
And
So
so
is that all we're actually allowed to by law? Because we
she
can
said
only
it
charge-
wasn't in the statute, but she thought we had a policy that we could follow, but
Because we can only charge, by law, 25 cents per copy.
Right.
yeah, but we can also charge for research,
Yep.
Jamie said.
Yes, I know we can charge for it, but do they set the standard by which you can charge?
The
No,
I
state,
think the
not that
state-
word.
I think.
Well, that's what we need to talk about next week, I think, is
Yeah.
we'll get more
Yeah,
information.
we'll get more information. Because maybe there's something from the state level
We
too.
will look at that one and prepare
Okay,
for next week.
bring it up for next week and give us any information you can.
Yep.
Good. Anything else to be brought up for a business meeting this morning?
Well, we got to approve the claims we talked about.
Oh, yes, that's right. I guess I need a motion to approve the claims.
I'll move we approve the claims, human services and license center disbursements.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And I see department head meeting today is Justin and Steve.
Mhm.
Next month is Teresa and Dana. Any other business?
Move to adjourn.
Well,
We can't, we're gonna.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
should I let Linda know or who's
Can we
first?
take a 10-minute break?
Sure. Who do you have on first, Carol?
Yesterday.
Rob is coming at 10:15.
Take a 10-minute break. I make a motion to
How-
take a 10-minute recess.
How about if I call him and have him come early?
Yeah, sounds good. We're gonna recess for 10 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah.
We need a motion to do that.
I already made the motion.
Oh, did you already make a
made it.
motion? Okay, then a second.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
I'll call you and ask you how it goes.
We're back into session. Oh, you're gonna Does somebody else want to make a motion to go back into session?
Move to come back in the open session, yeah.
Hang on.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Rob. You get to be our first budget hearing. For today, I should say. And we know it's going to be a tough one.
I'm pretty hard to get along with.
We know.
We hate it when you yell
I'll
at us.
try, I'll work at it. Well, good morning again.
Yes.
Anything I need to say? In front of you, Department 121.
ask you the questions.
I think that this budget looks really good. I mean, what else could you cut? You can't cut much.
But are you putting money away for that van each year too?
No, we haven't.
Because
been
you're
able to
gonna
do that.
you're gonna need some more money other than the 10.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what we can find.
Well.
I mean, if we can find something with low mileage that's used still, I mean, that's.
You know, and maybe making contacts too with dealerships that know that you're veterans.
Yeah.
I mean,
You know, I mean, we've looked at state bid in the past when we've went after vehicles, and, you know, if you're gonna go with a new vehicle, that's great and all, but that's still, you still have to come up with that money. So the last one that we did, we actually utilized a lease or a rental in vehicle, and we got it for, I think it was like 10,000 under Blue Book at the time, so I mean, and it had 20,000 miles on it. So I mean, it still had warranty on it, everything like that.
You
So we'll
still
start
going
doing
to
some
be
shopping.
going to Toma and Madison.
Toma, Madison, and Minneapolis.
Those three.
Rob, have you ever approached anybody like some of the older veterans when they pass on to deed their van back to the veterans? Like they do for Boys Ranches and stuff like that?
To be honest, no, I haven't.
Is that a-
I personally have an issue with that.
Okay.
And the same with Legions and VFWs. I know in the past it's been asked if we contacted them, and I guess the issue that I have is I don't feel they should be paying for their own vehicle. To be blunt, until other departments start doing bake sales or things like that for their vehicles, I don't think it's appropriate. Just me. I've got a lot of people that, some counties do that, and I understand it, but
These are
I
people that
personally
we
just have an issue with
served,
it.
or that served for us.
Well, and the service that is being provided, all of our services are mandated with the exception of its transportation. It's the one that's not mandated. But when you play out through the course of the year, some of the appointments these people are going to, and without that, the fact that they would be going on more of a local base, Minnesota Care or something like that, for the, if it cost us, let's say $7,000 a year to operate it, or $10,000 a year to operate it, if we get, $1 million to $2 million in return based on the medical care that they receive, it's a very minimal expense for the return that they get back on it. So I look at it as, even though it's not a mandated item, it is a major cost savings to the county in the end. Truth be told, it is a headache for us to schedule. It consumes a lot of our time. So realistically, it would be better for me if we didn't have it, to be perfectly honest. That being said, it's not about convenience for me. It's about making it easier for some of these folks to get it. If they're going to La Crosse, that's one thing. Almost everybody in the county can find somebody to drive them to La Crosse, a local Legion member or something like that. But some of the folks we're dealing with have no family members around the area at all. We still get grief that we don't provide transportation to La Crosse, but it's just not cost feasible for us to even consider it. Played out the numbers one time, we practically have to double our entire budget to be able to do that effectively between vehicles, fuel, paying drivers. We'd be talking multiple trips a day. It's just not realistic.
To the cross,
So-
yeah.
So we try to do it at least outside the area where, in those cases, it means that, a son or daughter doesn't have to necessarily take off the day and come down from Minneapolis to take dad to the appointment over in Madison. We can do that. So, but it is. Unfortunately, my assistant is the one who does 95% of the scheduling with the transportation. She's amazing with it. She spends more time trying to coordinate multiple appointments, get them all on one day, so we're not running 30 days a month, making it as minimal as we possibly can. So, that being said, I think it's been a few years back. I think 2006 was when we bought the last van. I think we got it for around 14, if memory serves me right. Based on the decent. And that being said, we don't necessarily even need a van at this point in time, too. So, we'll play some
It's nicer
options out
though
there.
to put in the walkers and the wheelchairs and.
There is, but there's vehicles similar to like not the hybrids, but like the crossovers. There you go, where it's a mini SUV, the gas mileage is better. We're having increased efficiency based off of that, and they still have the large cargo area and availability to fold down seats and stuff like that. But the days of us hauling 6, 7 people are less, where the days of us hauling 2 or 3 or more, so we could realistically get away with that. I guess another recommendation I would make down the road when and if this comes to play would be to hang on to the older van, the one we have currently. I think it would benefit the county more to have that as a vehicle that departments could utilize, cutting down in mileage, since it is paid for. Other, obviously, than our insurance and fuel, as opposed to selling it based on the mileage and go for a very minimal amount at the auction, whereas I think many departments contact us to use it for moving people. Human Services contacts us for that. You know, other departments ask if they need to take multiple people to appointments and such. I think it would be smart to hang on to it, just for
I
that
think so
purpose.
too.
Well, we talked even like with the board stuff, with soil and water, as far as doing tours and things, we don't really have a van that everyone gets in, so everybody takes their own personal cars. And I understand keeping that van around for local trips, you know. I've had people ask too, sometimes that happens with vehicles, and I go, why does the department need a new vehicle if we're going to just keep that one around anyway? Why don't they just keep using it? But in your, I know talking with you and stuff, you know, it's the long trips that you're taking to Minneapolis, Madison, you don't want the breakdowns, or if it's local, it's a little easier to deal with. So you're right, for the cost of the van to keep around for our short local trips around this area, we've had many instances where we've needed more than 4 people in a vehicle that we don't have one. So I would agree with your statement on that.
And again, as you said, it's, you know, if it's my personal vehicle, that's one thing. My personal vehicles all have on 150,000 plus miles on it. One of those vehicles goes down, it affects me. That's it. This vehicle goes down as we had the deer hit, I don't know, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, maybe it was. That was 2 weeks that we were without that. It was a struggle for these individuals to try to figure out how they're going to get there. So, I mean, having even a fallback like that in an event like that is smart. And we do occasionally have it where we will have multiple appointments going in different directions on the same day. We try to cancel or reschedule one of those in those circumstances, but if a person's going to be 3 months out to do a reschedule on it, it's not in the person's best interest. So even having a fallback on that, we've used like sheriff's office vehicles before, but yeah, I think it's a good idea. So, and I, to be honest, would not be looking to do this jump on this vehicle until probably after the first of the year at any rate. So, you know, unless we do go out and find something that is just too good to pass, and if that's the case, you know, I'd bring it forward and see if we can eat it out of the existing budget. But
Sounds good. Your budget looks good. Any other questions for Ron?
Yeah.
No, thank you for the good job you do.
You want to take these with you?
yes, I'll be happy to take those. Did you get a copy of that, or do you need a copy of the full?
Well, you gave me the photocopy,
Yeah.
and then.
Once it's executed with all the signatures, get a
Correct.
full copy?
Do you need a copy of the resolution?
We would.
Okay, I'll get
Yeah.
that out to you.
Sounds good, thank you. Thank you very much, Carol.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Linda?
Linda, can you go through yours that quick? Probably not, but I'll try.
It just depends on what kind of questions you ask.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, well, we can go along with terms and things in my budget, just because there's a lot of topics in there, I think. One thing that affects us big time in my budget, well, there's a couple things, so I'm going to try and hit on the things that do affect it. You know, the Min Choices is the program. MinSure is income maintenance, and that's Karen Kohlmeyer. Min Choices is disability services and how they've changed that whole darn program.
Which part is that under then?
That would be under the 700 parts, so social services. Anyway, I'm just going to talk a little bit in general about it. What has gone on with it is the state has done some training now. They were supposed to have it up, running, and implemented like in March this year for our county. And that now has turned into September, and I'm not even sure if it's middle September or late September. Anyway, as far as I know, it's on track. What has gone on with that though, they have changed how we do some of the billings, where the bills get paid from. Used to be all the waiver programs ran through the county, so like a disability services social worker would go out and hire somebody to build a ramp or something for someone who's handicapped. And anyway, they still go through that process. However, the vendor doesn't get paid through the county anymore, and we don't get reimbursed at the county level anymore. So there's really two things that have gone on in that whole disability services department. That would, 245D has pulled all the waiver funds from us. So that pulled, you know, they were all 100% reimbursed anyway. So I would think, okay, no, that's a wash. There's a few timing issues there that overlap years, but otherwise it's pretty much a wash. However, we have not, because of the change in min choices, we've been tracking expenses like we always do. However, we have not been able to see a good pattern on the revenues. And so that's made it a little hard to budget. That's one thing. And then the other thing we have going on that's a bit of a fiasco, if you ask me, is, and I guess that's a bad word, but it's kind of what it is. And I think Teresa and Steve already know about it because we brought it up in committee. We went into EDMS with Winona County, us, and 4 other counties. So there's 5 other counties plus Winona in our EDMS project. We have a statement of work saying it was going to cost us $43,000 some odd dollars to get income maintenance up and running. Winona County at the time, and they sold this to all the county boards, at the time did not want to, they weren't expecting us to pay their startup costs because they wanted to, as a county, grow, but they were very willing to share it, and they were very willing to increase their capacity, and it would be $16,667 a year for us to maintain our income maintenance. And the more counties who signed on, the lower that cost would get. Okay, that was what we were told. And so anyway, in March, apparently Carol got a bill, and Carol thought it was a copy of a bill because you didn't know what it was. Anyway, because they sent it to her, they should not have even sent it to her. Should have sent it to Human Services. So anyway, about June, we ended up getting another bill in addition to this March bill. The June bill was for $55,000, and since then there's been another $30,000 bill. So basically, what's been going on, and it's not just our county, it is us, Wabasha, Fillmore, Goodhue, and Freeborn County. And by the way, none of the 5 counties have paid any of these bills. I do believe rightfully we owe the $43,000 to get up and running and to get started with income maintenance. I do also know we have a statement of work for child support, and we will need to pay that. However, there are 2 big bills that Winona is trying to push off on all the counties. We've met, well, I've talked to you guys about it in committee. We've met, the 5 directors met the second Friday in August, I don't know what that date was, but anyway, with Mark Anderson from Winona County. And I looked at him, he came back down here even another day. I came back down and I said, I thought with the equipment and repairs and ongoing maintenance, the whole thing was supposed to cost us $160 mark. And he looked at me like, what are you talking about, you know? And his statement right now is because they've lost their county administrator up there somehow or other. This all got lost in the wash. Yet I can tell you right now, Fillmore's treating it as a total mistake, and so is Fillmore. Those are the 2 I've talked to this week. I need to catch up with Wabasha and Goodhue right now. But anyway, we have a contract per se, and I haven't found where it mentions any of this in there. So I don't see just because somebody sends you a bill, you have to pay it. So anyway, in case we do lose this battle, because I have also talked with Andy Nelby about it, and I know Andy was here with me when we talked about EDMS. And on September 25th, all the IT directors are getting together with Mark to find out what the scoop is, because none of the IT directors from 5 counties are remembering these big bills. So there's a fiasco going on. However, on the other hand, if we get stuck, what do? Pull the switch, and then where does our data go? So they kind of have us in a way, and in another way, I don't think they have us. I put them in the budget because I had to. So that probably explains my levy increase of $42,000, because that's probably, I could have probably made it be a 0 levy increase if we wouldn't be having that fiasco now, in spite of what's going on with min choices and all of that. But anyway, It hasn't been very pleasant.
But it sounds like the other 5 counties are
I know.
not paying it
Right,
either.
and we're all sticking
And
together.
all the commissioners are
Yeah,
sticking together on that.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it took you 2 months to even get over to Mark Anderson at all.
Oh,
He
he
wouldn't
wouldn't-
return any calls or
No.
emails or
No, no.
to explain what the bill was.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We got the second bill at the beginning of June, and all the counties were trying to get a hold of him. We all did get a hold of Pat Moga, who is the finance director in Winona County, and Pat's answer to us was, oh, I just put on the bills what Mark told me to. And actually, we have an email, Heidi sent an email to Mark, and then I reiterated and sent another email. Heidi's email was, there's no dates on this $43,000 invoice. We need dates before we can pay it, because there aren't any details on these invoices. They're just kind of pretty general. Yeah, anyway, she sent that, and then I sent another one to him saying, along with that, and I tried to put it in a very nice diplomatic way, because we want to get along with Winona County. But anyway, I put it in a nice way, and I said, along with what Heidi is asking on these other 2 invoices, the $55,000 one and the $35,000 one, I said, we also need to have, I'm not finding in our contract or in our statement of work where these charges are coming from. So if you could point those things out to me as well, I would appreciate it. And then we can move forward, is how I put it, something like that. And anyway, but I did try and be decent, but I haven't heard back from him, so I know they're not in the contract. And I know
They are not in the contract.
No, and they're not in the statement of work either.
Jamie has reviewed the contract in comparison to these.
Well, she reviewed it's not what you would call a contract, it's more like what would you call it, what do you call it, an MOE, memorandum of understanding, MOU, a memorandum of understanding, but it's the same one that all 5 counties have, and it mentions nothing in there about dollar amounts. The one thing it does say is we can back out after 30 days. But if we back out, where do we go to? Because at this point in time, Andy has said
We're pretty committed.
we're committed, yeah. Yeah.
Well, all the counties are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So I
there's
don't-
something wrong with their billing there and they won't reply.
Yeah, well, and now he has replied, but he's a pretty smooth fellow. He just thinks he's right. And I mean,
I know, Mark, yes.
if you have 5 counties saying, no, show me where you're getting this money from. I mean, they can bill us till the cows come home, and until I see where that is, I won't be paying it.
Good.
So I don't
And
know.
I don't think we've authorized paying it at this
No.
point anyway.
Yeah.
And I talked to commissioners from Fillmore County too, and they said the same thing, that
Yeah.
there's no,
So they're aware. The thing I'm not sure of is I don't know if the Winona County Commissioners are aware. And I don't know if that's my place to go talk to a county commissioner up in Winona. But
The interim administrator, has anyone talked to her?
I talked to her once, and,
Or she just said it's him?
well,
Or-
I explained to her how Mark wasn't getting back to us, and she was going to investigate and talk to him. And so since then, he has gotten back to us. There's there's a contest going on up in Winona too, with who's going to get the administrator's job. And I know the interim administrator now, Maureen, who is the HR director, is one who's applying, and Mark has made that's what he wants to do. He also wants the administrator job. And I believe,
that would help us, wouldn't it?
oh yeah, great, yeah, but he, I believe, well, I think he believes that what's going on here, and I don't know if you guys have investigated Winona's budgeting issues the last year or 2, but they have had 0, I believe that's 0 last year. They want to have either 0 or negative this year. And there's a reason, and it's because they spent, I believe it's been like $3,000 on this EDMS project for one thing. I think they've spent a lot of money, and Mark is trying to recoup it. And I believe he thinks, this is just my thought, my opinion, it's all my opinion. I believe, though, that he is trying to recoup that money with us 5 counties, because it would end up being a little over $800,000 he could recoup if he gets all of us for the money he wants. That wasn't in our statement of work or in our MOU.
And they keep zero budget increases by having these services that they provide to other places, and this heavily into that being more of a cost than what you assume.
Yep, and we're glad to pay for our licensure and all that stuff, and that ends up being, I can't remember the bill exactly, $28,000 a year or something, and that's what we had initially planned on. But these other bills are they're really coming out of left field. So, yeah, it's not a good situation, and so that is in there. I don't know whether to budget for it or whether to not budget for it. I guess I need a strong county board to say, no, please don't pay that. I know you don't have the authority to pay that, and you know that will come down the road here. I'm real anxious to see what happens September 25th when the IT directors all meet, because Andy agrees with me. We're so on the same page. Neither of us remember any of this, and we don't know where they're getting it from. And until they can show me where it says we have to pay it.
I don't think we really want to budget and levy for this at this time personally. I mean, it doesn't sound like we really owe it.
That's what I think.
And for us to say, oh yeah, we'll put money aside, then we can always come after us for it.
I would just stick in your heels and say,
Yeah,
We're not budgeting for it.
We're not,
we have dug in our heels, and I tell you what, it's really not nice. We're really disgusted, and the other counties are too. I know Fillmore's considering it a mistake, so that's very gracious of them, and they also are working pretty hard with Winona County. They share a community services director who has, I think, kind of tried to stay out of it because it puts her in a bad light. I don't know. I think with her, I have said to the community services director of Winona, I have said, I hope this doesn't spoil good relationships that we have had.
and we've been pushing to have 5 counties working together, and
Yeah,
you know,
this is quite the fiasco.
yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's just not nice at all. So, okay, I can gladly take that out of there.
Sounds
And
good.
what I will put in there, though, will be what I believe the ongoing maintenance is, and I just don't remember that number off the top of my head. It's either 35 or it's 28, but there are so many numbers that, I think it might be 28, but I'll fix that. I'll be glad to do that. And I'm glad to get the direction on what to do about that. Otherwise, in this board packet here, there's really just one thing I did notice that I thought was interesting. If we take all of our wages we have, I know there was a 0 wage increase and the insurance stayed what it was. At the time we do steps, just so you know, by the time we did the steps, and there though, actually Carol did the steps, and by the time we considered the one new FTE we had, and then there was one other thing I noticed. There was one employee we had last year who had no health insurance, and this year she's going to pick family. That was a $19,000 bump right there. So anyway, the change in our wages from last year to this year, considering all those things, ends up being a change of like $63,000.
So how much of that would actually be reimbursed?
Well, if,
You know, because your budget doesn't
Yeah.
increase the total amount of your salaries because your reimbursements also increase.
yeah, very, very, very true, yeah. And plus, the one we added was because of min choices and disability services, so I think that one will pan out okay too. So some of those social workers, a lot of what they do is reimbursed. In fact, I break even or even maybe even a little better on the disability services social workers. So those I don't worry about. We get partial reimbursement on the children's mental health social workers because they get targeted case management kits, as we do with adult mental health social workers. Child protection social workers, we get no reimbursement. Adult protection social worker, we get no reimbursement. Chemical dependency work, we get no reimbursement. And if you go to the income maintenance and the child support side, child support, we're reimbursed 2/3 of everything we spend in child support, basically. Income maintenance, we're reimbursed right around 50%. That depends on Actually, I don't really understand what it depends on, because I'll say I'm not an actuary, but the formulas go in and they have random moments. Actually, they have random moments with the social workers as well, and we do get some reimbursements through random moments that way, depending on where they spend their time. It's pretty convoluted, and I think the state revealed some of their secret formula this summer, and Heidi learned about that up at her conference, but I can't really say off the top of my head how much that, I could sit and figure it out eventually, and it is built into the budget, but.
Right, through the revenues, that actually offsets their increased revenue.
Where do we see that though? I mean, you know, we see that your salaries are going up 60-some thousand, but we know it's getting reimbursed partially.
Yeah.
I mean, where does that show?
A lot of it comes in on the lines that say admin. If you look on the revenue line, so like if you're looking at social services, I don't know if that's the best one. It might be easier to look at income maintenance. The ones that have 11, 420, 600, and then you see all those zeros, 0, 0, 0, 0.
Yeah.
And then the object code is in the 5s. Those are revenue counts. And a lot of it falls under like 52, 58 is federal admin aid, so there might be some put in there. It depends on the program area you look at. So like in 640 would be child support. A lot of the wage reimbursement comes under 11, 420, 640, and then 0000, because that's a revenue count. And then 52, 58 is federal admin aid there. And a lot of child support. Child support's a federal program. So if you look there, there's a pretty big number in there for the federal admin aid reimbursement. And actually, federal admin aid there also probably is where a lot of our reimbursement, like 2/3 of the sheriff's fees would probably fall under federal admin aid. So that's a lot of their reimbursement there. 650 is medical assistance, and a lot of the federal admin aid there as well reimburses some of the salaries. It also reimburses other things. The state and the federal inmate transportation land under the 5260, the 5262, and the 5263, those are federal, and then the inmate transportation is reimbursed 50% state, 50% federal, so it's in there. It's convoluted, but I will say it's probably easier to look at a real cost report that Human Services gets than a budget sheet, because it just, when it comes in, if you ask Donna too, when it comes in, it's coded, and the coding is kind of funny looking, and it's like it's in code, honestly. I can't explain it anywhere else. It's convoluted, it's coded, and but it's all in there. And actually, I was pretty happy things turned out the way they did with our last year budget, so I'm pretty happy with the way things are turning out this year too. I don't know, do you have any other questions?
Say real quick, under your 430 social services.
Yep.
I'm just curious about this. The very, very top of that, 433, 830, and then 6021.
3830, oh wait, right, wait, 11, 430,
742.
742, okay.
Yeah. 3830,
Okay.
6021.
742, 4830. I can tell you it is children's mental health.
Yeah, but here's my question though. So is that an expenditure that we were spending money on? And now in 2015, they're zeroed out?
Well, we budgeted 0 because we probably don't have any kids in residential treatment right now.
Right, but shouldn't that change be in parentheses because that's positive? Right, if we're cutting it out of the budget, it should show that it's,
It is an expense.
right, so we cut the expense out, so from 2014 to now, should that be showing positive?
Well, it depends on if you want it to be an expense or like children's respite grant. That one actually increased, so it has brackets around it. Brackets, I don't know, if you get into an accounting program, brackets mean an increase, and they just mean the opposite of what you're thinking.
I thought it was just the opposite. I was thinking the same thing. I thought when it says brackets, it's a decrease.
That's why I said brackets are a good thing.
Brackets are a good thing on expenditures.
Right, so that's what I'm saying.
And
That's what I'm saying, see, like, okay, so in 20,
So it looks like these are all, the formulas are all opposite.
And they're all opposite.
We'll have to go
Exactly.
through those.
so I was just looking at that, I'm going, we're not increasing by 94,000 if we cut, right there, you cut $100,000 out, why would we be going up by 94?
We're actually decreasing
Right.
94,000 now.
Right.
Yeah, we're decreasing.
But why would we
You should have been
not budget for,
What's that?
why would we not budget for kids being placed?
Well, maybe because we didn't have any this year, but we probably put it in another line item, so it's kind of like a shot in the dark sometimes, I can tell you that. So we don't know, I mean, we don't know if we're gonna have more adults in, or more corrections kids, or more,
Just comes out of another line item if you do get.
yeah.
But yeah, that threw me off too, Justin. I thought all of these are just the opposite of what we've been seeing.
Right.
What's weird though is I did go and I compared, so total revenues, you do have a sheet, well Heidi entered it, which is no big deal. I think she did, didn't she? Or did you? She does have here, when I look at total revenues, she has, on the very last page, she has those as, like the $1,830,000 revenue. I look at that and I go, oh, okay, that's a credit. She has it in as a credit. And then the 2650, 400 expenses is a debit. So you're saying it should be in the opposite way.
Well, no.
Well, just this there, because I understand what
Just,
it's,
it's the change column, I think that's the opposite.
Right.
Yeah, the change column is the
You know, for
opposite.
the revenues, it
But-
should be the other way.
but you're right, because when you go down, okay, look just a little bit down, it says developmentally disabled program, right? You go 2 down from there, you went from 215 to 107, a change of 108,000. Yeah, that's right, it's in parentheses, we saved 108,000. So it's right everywhere except that one spot.
Boy, you're pretty astute to catch that one. See, I compared in total.
Well, I'm just wondering if the total's right or wrong if that column's right. So
Gotcha.
anyways, just check into that, because that might, we might have $94,000 more than what we think we do.
Well, I'm gonna look at
You're right, it is correct down below.
homemade spreadsheet. This one is, what's your you call it spreadsheet?
Spreadsheet server.
Spreadsheet server, yeah. I'll look at mine here. 742.
See, when we get down to the development, it's stated correctly when it goes up or down. It's in parentheses when it goes down.
And I understand, like, when you
And
go down
up
to that.
above, under the social services children.
The one
they-
section needs to be.
That one section, like, we probably,
And it's just a change column.
Right.
You know, because
Yep.
when it gets down to the bottom line, it doesn't matter what that change was calculated at because it's using the totals.
Gotcha.
So that shouldn't affect the bottom.
Okay.
Well,
So we
Anyway.
didn't just buy $93,000.
sorry.
Dang.
I thought we did too.
Well, I can tell you though, looking at mine has more notes on it, where it says children's residential treatment and children's residential treatment. I know more now because I did look at my other page. Both of those are Rule 5, children's residential treatment, and one is regular and one is 4E. Rule 5, we haven't had a Rule 5 for quite a few years, and it's a special kind of children's residential treatment. Not that we don't have children's residential treatment of other types, but I know why that's in there because one year we had a very expensive Rule 5, if not more than one, we maybe had more
Well, it
than
was
one.
like 2013 for expenses in both of those accounts.
Yeah, so then that's a couple of years ago now. Well, if it was in the beginning of the year, but anyway, that's why. Well, that is interesting. So do you want to go in and check your spreadsheet, Sue?
Yeah, I'm sure it's just the, you know, the calculation for the change, and I know we keep going through these, we try to get a little farther each year to make sure each one of those are okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Not a big deal, but just, it gets confusing looking at it.
Yes, I can bet it is.
Send it to a little flag though.
Yeah, and I kind of don't look at the change, I just look to make sure, I checked through it to make sure the budget numbers were correct for 2015. Cool.
Thanks, Linda.
You're welcome, and I'll put that one change in, and I'll shoot you an email. I think do I still have access? I could go in and change it in the budget if I have access. I don't know if I do anymore. I should. And Heidi was on today, if that's okay. I'll figure out what it should be. But I bet you Nickel will end up with a zero budget. How's that sound?
There you go.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Linda.
Yep, thank you. Or some of that thing.
Oh,
I like that.
Rick is, no.
Rick's good. All right, thanks, guys.
Hey, Julie, I sent you a little while ago, telling her to be ready early, but it's done now. You did. Okay. Thank you. Bye. You're coming right down.
Carol, were salaries figured at a zero increase? So if the unions don't go with zero, if the negotiations don't come with zero, the whole budget increases?
Right.
We have, yes. Do you know what the numbers, if it was like 2% or whatever, what that would increase?
Approximately $130,000.
So another 1.5% probably.
Oh, come on up.
Come right front and center.
They're all ready for you.
Morning.
Morning. Where would you like to start first?
Just flag anything that we should be.
Why don't we go with planning and zoning first?
Yeah, they have it in, that's the order, planning and zoning, then water planning, and then.
Well, I got my scratch paper here.
Now Linda had a very little piece of scratch paper. I suppose you have a big one.
Couple of them.
Okay.
All right.
I should have talked to you earlier, Carol, but like down here on the feedlot base grant,
This stuff here.
bottom line, probably isn't right for the performance grant. That should be like 8,000 or 9,000. I'm not sure, but
You mean 8,000 or 9,000 that we have to levy?
no, that we got
That we
in,
did here.
and we don't have to match that at all. That's just money in.
Okay, the feedlot base.
Under the feedlot base grant you're talking about?
The bottom line, yeah. the-
Performance,
Forms, okay.
6848.
Okay, you know, I wasn't sure about that and I got it because I didn't want to make it, I wanted to look like revenue we were getting when maybe we weren't supposed to. So, it should be like what?
Should be like 9,000, I thought, last year. I mean, I can give you the actual number.
More than last year?
Well, in 2013, we showed 9,232. 2014,
Way in the bottom line there.
Well, the line above it, what is that one?
This one.
Is
This
that
right here.
Is that our match, maybe? Is that what that is?
5848, that's the project that we spend the money on.
Okay.
I mean, really, for grants, it should always come to zero unless we're required to levy for it. You know, like the next one, we're required that $6,100 levy.
Sure.
Right? So really, our budget for grants should be the zero because we get money in and we have to spend it all, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like the way you break out the FEMA-based grant, you know, with the salaries, insurance and everything. I wonder if we shouldn't be doing that for the SSTs. You know, it's just to show that a little more clear.
And as long as you would, see, what we do is take 0.25% of Holly's salary goes into this 155.
Okay.
It did go into the 154, but then, I don't know, a couple of years ago, it got changed to the 155. So maybe we should look at different splits of the payroll.
I think so.
Okay.
You just give the picture of how it's spent.
Yeah, how the money is really low.
Yep.
Okay. Well,
Walk it through the front.
that sidebar, we'll make some changes and get a little more data spread out to the grant.
Okay,
How they're,
because a grant should zero out unless it's a matching grant.
yes, unless you need to match it with the levy amount, which is the
Like water
base grant, you know, that shows the $6,100, that means we have to levy that amount.
That is
In order to get that grant.
that is a mandate we gotta do. That's part of the,
Okay.
Okay, yeah, we'll go through that.
Not a lot of changes throughout here, pretty minimal.
What's the big reason for quadrupling the office supply stuff? Office supplies for reforms, is there something coming up that you're anticipating? Or?
Which?
yeah.
6401.
We have, you got new zoning ordinance coming up, mapping, different things that we're gonna need to do. Zoning ordinance especially, yes, it goes online, but we're still gonna need books for use as commissioners, planning commissions, staff, and we can sell them back to the public, but yeah, that's part of that.
Okay.
We got ordinance that was approved in July, we got to print that one out. But, you know, there's next year, but that's for the new mining and extraction ordinance.
We need to put that all in booklet form.
And then anything like mileage wise going up, anticipating going somewhere? Or?
Well, it's really been under budgeted.
I see that for that 1 year it was 4. I'm just saying, yeah, for the 1 year it was 14. Right now, halfway through at 341, so we still got 1,200 to go. I was just curious what if.
Yeah, but we're in our busiest season right now.
Yeah, things really pick up for the fall.
Well, you know, you got septic systems now that are going in, where we used to normally go, say, on a septic system one time, we're going, now with these new mounds and upgrades going in, you're visiting each one probably minimum 2, probably mostly 3.
And we didn't do many in June because it was so wet, the contractors just couldn't get them done. So we're gonna get a lot of mileage from here to the.
So the second half's busier.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been a mileage bill submitted for a couple months.
I gotta get
Little line.
Little minor detail there.
So just keep in mind, if you don't submit it for 6 months, I can actually make it taxable.
Really?
Just something to keep in mind.
You'll have it in your
And
desk
I'll get you that.
Okay.
Hey, Bob, real quick, it's kind of off topic, but you just mentioned subject. Like with the mound systems now, are those, like, you know, with all the changes that always happen, like septic systems, are mounds less apt for major changes, or why is like that kind of the coveted way to go now?
It's based on the site, because if there's a seasonal high water table that's close to the surface.
It gets you out of that?
You got, yeah, you gotta be above it. So you treat that septic effluent with sand.
Gotcha.
above ground.
Okay.
That's the reason.
I was just curious because you always hear everybody like, oh, it's got a bounce system, that's good. And it's like, what's the,
They're proven to work.
There's no difference between that and a trench. What the state requires us is to have 3 foot of separation between where the water table, known water, highest water table mark is, and where your effluent starts.
but I mean,
There's
with the bounce, it's getting you more of a buffer zone to get you up and out of that. So it's going to be less likely to fail later on or something.
Yeah, it gets you above that water table.
Yeah.
Well, not so much as, I mean, they're all got a license,
Sure.
all of them do.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to be replaced sooner or later, but, you know, you got a lot of trenches that have probably been out there 20, 30 years that are still working. It's a matter of maintaining them and,
Yeah.
you know.
Okay. I was just curious.
So it's mainly to save the groundwater, basically.
Exactly.
It's not the life expectancy of the system.
Right.
Good mounds have
But
been
their
around.
good mounds are more expensive, I think.
They are. They've been around a long time too, though.
Yeah.
I mean, the mounds have been working for 30 years as well, so.
Okay, back to budget. Thanks.
Do you ever find a necklace in the?
Never did.
Okay.
I know what that sounded like when it
You know better than that.
She lost it. Lost her necklace.
You know what I meant.
Maybe it's in the glove box.
Lisa, you just put that close.
Yes.
It doesn't go in the minutes. Never followed up on that question.
Everything but the budgets.
Yeah, back to budgets. Okay, so your budget basically is very similar to what it was. I mean, there wasn't many changes, you're saying?
Right.
And part of the, part of the increase actually comes in the fact that the grants maybe weren't budgeted for correctly and, showing that we had revenue from them, but really grants should always be zeroed out.
Yeah.
And that would be the change this year. Because even though you don't encode the expense right to that account, the expenditure is up here.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in.
Right.
So you'll fix that?
Well, it is fixed.
Okay.
The way it needs to be for that. But we'll look at splitting some of the salaries up and more applying to the grant,
Okay.
in which case we'd change that number.
Okay. Shoreline 00, obviously feedlots, big there.
So, Soil and Water actually does work for which of all of these grants?
They do it for the feedlots and the WACA. And not much for shoreline, but once in a while. But see, all that is, they bill my office, they keep track of their mileage or their time, and they bill me per hour. And then it goes against those, I'd say if it's WACA or that, like I said, they keep track of their time, dates, and everything, so that when I get audited, I've got proof that, where the time and the money and all went.
With the feedlot, they bill us mostly through the federal grants, mostly through the feedlot 5. But they have billed us on the base grant as well. The last year or two, it's been a lot out of the federal,
And
feedlot 4 or 5. And we're going, actually feedlot 6 is coming up for next year.
really? Because that wasn't on your sheet.
Well, actually, that feedlot 5 should be changed to 6. 4 should be canceled out now, it should be 5 and 6. I'll get that.
Okay, we'll get it. But it's just going to zero out anyway, so it's just a...
Yep, just a different label on the label.
And the Water Planning Commission is basically the same. We have to levy a certain amount. And it's been $7,973 for 3 years.
See, the water planning, that's, I think Dana, you're on that. Yeah, that's what that is. And that's, that money you see, and that,
What's the expense in here this year?
we are
We're up to
getting,
11,950.
we're getting a grant. We get grants from the
Still
state
right down again.
of $14,699, and we levy $79.73 for a total budget of $22,672. And that's what then, they bill my office again for any expenditures. They administer the whole program, but in order to keep the paper trail, that's what we do. So auditors know what the money's coming in and where it's going out for.
Because the grants are issued or awarded to Houston County. They're not awarded to Soil and Water. And they have, I just lost the question I was going to ask. It's gone.
This total doesn't add up, just so you know. At least in my eyes, it's an adding at all. Okay, so there's a change like planning and zoning, so it says total planning and zoning went up $6,800. Then you go down to feedlot base grant, it says base grant performance, that grant went up $4,600, but it's showing that it's went down. You know what I'm saying, it went from 31,000 in grant money to 36, so that should be plus 4,000. So even at that, that should take off about $2,200 left over that it went up. Then you've got the grant on the back that went down 5, so then we should be at 7. But the total says 12,000. Where is it going up $12,000? You know what I'm saying? So I see we lose 5,000 on that base grant, so I understand that loss. But this addition on the other side should almost zero itself out, so where's the extra 6,000 coming from? See what I'm talking about?
The 6842,
Yep.
the regular planning and zoning?
Yep, so take that 6842, okay? Which is fine, so 6842. But, go down, we get an extra 4,600 in that grant, and we lose 5,000 in the other grant. Well, that should only be a change of at most $1,000.
Which, what, 4,600?
The 4615 at the bottom.
That's the increase in the expenditure of the grant, that's not how much more we're getting?
So we don't, that grant, we're paying for that grant?
No, because when you get down to the bottom here, the revenues and expenditures zero out. So we're actually losing 5227 because in prior years they didn't zero those grants out like they should have in the budget.
I understand that, but I guess I'm just getting confused here because that backside, okay, so this is that change is 52.
So
Total
if you add
feedlot
the
base grant performance.
6842 plus the 5227, it comes up to the 12,069 close. But
Yeah.
then there's a $200 change.
So
in-
I guess my only question is feedlot grant performance. It's 0000, and I thought that was showing that that is a grant coming in as revenue.
Which one?
107, 155, 68, 40, feedlot grant
68,
performance.
okay, the 5,000 numbers on the end
Yep.
are revenues. The
Okay.
6,000 numbers on the end are the expenditures associated with that revenue.
Okay, so what were you talking about with Linda? We were talking about just a little bit ago, the 0000.
They have a lot of different codes, and she said 000 and
So you do not have a
at the
standard?
end, $5,000, the 5,000 numbers are revenues, and, okay, like in the human services part of it, they also have the 11, 430, 720, 60, 3830, and then the 5,000 numbers for revenues. But if it's 11, 430, 000, 000, and then a 5,000 number, it's an admin. And she was talking about the admin revenues to offset her salaries expense, which would be where it would go.
You lost me a long time ago, so you can stop talking because it's not going to help, but.
Well, actually, okay.
I'm
it
just
was
saying, I was just saying, so we don't have a standard in between departments?
I mean, there is. Here's where the problem comes in. In human services, they use all of these other codes.
Yep. Yep.
But what she was talking about when it's 000-000-5358. All the 5,000 numbers are revenues.
Okay.
All the 6,000 numbers are expenditures.
Yep.
And she said the 000-000-5, whatever, 58 was the federal admin aid.
Yep.
And that goes to offset salaries.
Okay.
These other, once you get into adding these other numbers, those are RAS codes, and they break it out into specific programs within human services. They're not just for the general payment of bills.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, between the two of us, these numbers.
So
are
only
the
pay
same.
attention to those, don't worry about the other ones. Okay, do that. Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Yes. RAS codes, I don't understand them really at all. But they can tell you, if you were to say, oh yeah, I'm looking at that 650, 4,700, they would know exactly what program that is for.
I tried to find you guys an extra $6,000, sorry.
Yeah.
It's making sense to me too, actually. Just about 6,000 too.
Boy, that's $100,000 into a fund.
I know, you really
It lost, really lost.
Next time I go to the same.
Oh, yeah, I've only been to it, once. But man, I could shop with that.
Yeah.
So, other than salaries and the grant things, it's pretty much
That's our budget.
same old, yeah. All right.
Barring any unforeseens.
Right, yeah. Well, thanks, guys.
We still have to be recycling.
Recycling.
Oh, yeah, okay, we're done.
Bob.
Okay, thanks, Bob.
Don't you want to stay longer?
Okay, you want to say something?
They did ask, the auditors did ask, should we be indicating in our financial statements anything regarding landfill? Are we ever going to have any liability in regards to that?
No. And the reason I say that is the state has taken over the monitoring and the maintenance of that area. We did that back in probably late 80s, early 90s. Took us about, we closed it in 82, and it took us just about 6 to 8 years to get it. And the thing is, every one of us are still paying for it. If you notice, there's a solid waste tax on your bills. That solid waste tax is going to the state to take over these old closed landfills that everybody was having a problem with, and all these Superfund type landfills. That's where that money's going. And we have agreements with the state. They took this one over. We were facing about $1 million some cap on that landfill just before they took it over. That's the direction they were going, and the state took it over and put it on.
But that's actually
With that money.
a portion of our unbalanced came from, because we were levying
Yes.
for the cost of sealing the landfill, so.
You know, did they ever hold like expectancy of that landfill, like how long?
The one in the cross?
No, I'm talking about, are you talking about the one that's outside of Houston, right?
Right.
Yeah. What that, is it ever going to be considered safe?
Put it this way, Justin. The last time I was down there, we took soil borings
Okay.
next to the buildings down there.
Yeah.
What we came up with was newspapers that were buried 20 years earlier, and I could read them.
It sounds
I mean,
like
it's-
preserving it, but
It is.
Well, it is, it's keeping.
It gets no oxygen, so it's not breaking down, it's just sitting there.
You put like oxygenators down in there.
You know, we had put in for something like that a long time ago, and they seriously started considering, the state did, you know, so we could, as a test run with using, I was working with a group of using some like a fertilizer,
Yeah.
but last minute the state kind of jerked the whole idea on us, so. But yeah, actually, yeah, it was 20 years I was reading the Argus. I had the print of the date and everything right there, sitting there. So it's gonna last.
Yeah, well, that's just, I think about that, all the plastic bottles and garbage bags that.
I don't think they would ever, no matter how much oxygen they have, because you can burn those things and they don't even burn hampers.
I would look for the day we'll go probably, maybe head like lacrosse did over there, where you mine them.
You mean get them out, yeah.
You would mine the whole material out of there.
Oh, really? And just go through and take whatever recyclable and.
But they're not gonna come back and say, we have to pay for that, right?
No, that would be the state's, they took it over.
We don't want that.
I don't, that was a very happy divorce when that papers got signed. But they monitor that, I think 3 times a year. They take water samples down there and they track everything that's going on down there. They have put the extraction wells in there for the methane because it was migrating off, starting to migrate off site. So they've spent some money down there.
Under those disposal fees, like 6397, we budgeted 50,000 and we haven't used any of it.
Where are you, which one?
6397.
I don't have that.
You know, that has to, you know, I was going that, didn't, I think Julie talked to you about that.
And same with the disposal fees for the large households, we budgeted 120.
See, all of our, and I don't know where it's, I brought that up with Julie sitting there, I don't know how that's being coded.
I think I know what.
See, all of your 30-yarders, 20-yarders, and everything through these drop sites, that's where that's supposed to be coming, but why it's not.
Nothing showing up
I didn't
on our
change these.
expenditures.
We'll get a new
Okay.
one of these.
So we are spending more for budgeting.
We are.
But it's just not showing up on here.
Right. Because so that they can track the cost, we split it out by each individual site.
I've got it broken
But
down.
then, you know, for the total, because that's where it's budgeted, I should have added numbers in here.
Yeah.
I'll get those out to you.
We,
But the total really, for the budgets, that's all what they're asking for.
Rick, what's the big jump for e-waste?
the big jump is because we had to revamp the whole system. I was getting rid of that material to,
Oh, that's right, you're talking about, that's
it was going off my dock for nothing. And we've had to revamp that whole system, and we are now paying for it per pound going, depending on what it is, off my docks.
But we also get the rebate too. so-
Yes, there is offset rebate with that. I'm getting, my goal was also, because the state has got a rebate program going in this, I know that these companies are getting from the state of Minnesota, I kind of wanted some of that money. That's ours anyway. So we are getting, part of our contract states we get that portion of that. But there again, that should be covered underneath that household money that we generate, that $3 per household fee.
And you think the amount that we charge out at the drop sites is sufficient?
Yes, right now.
Covering costs?
Yeah. I did check with some of our vendors. They said at this point they don't see an increase coming. Something to change, but I mean, they're not looking for an increase.
Could you imagine what our county would look like if we didn't have this program?
I know.
I'm still going to do pretty much like the hazard waste collections will be run the same. There shouldn't be too much difference there. I look for a little more material as we go down. I can see some things coming. Sharps are starting to be a problem that I'm going to have to end up looking into to see what we can do right now. As long as they're coming in on, like say, heavy plastic, like soap container, gallon soap container, something like that, we can take them, but containers have to be clearly marked and everything. A lot of people are not aware of that, and mail was taking them, clinics were taking them until recently. Now they just decided they don't want to mess with it. So we're going to have to.
Does that come under your hazardous waste?
Pardon?
Hazardous waste?
Yes, yes. That's how we got to handle them once we get them. We have been taking them in at the drop sites, or not the drop sites, but the hazardous waste collections. We've been just starting to take them there. You know, if you're collecting them for a whole year, and diabetes is something that's very much on the increase, that we're going to see more and more of that. So I'm going to have to kind of give that some thought too. If there's better ways to collect it than once a year. So,
Because some people don't want to keep it and they throw it in their regular garbage.
yeah. I really don't want, not so much as regular garbage, but even we've had them coming through the recycling containers, because you're looking at, they'll just take that whole bottle and just throw it in. We have no clue. And when we had the recycling down in Houston, I had to backtrack, I think it was 3 instances where we got stabbed, you know, with needles. Yeah. I was able both, or all 3 times to come up with the individual, but lucky enough.
Any other questions for Rick? Rick, did you get an article or a letter from Recycle Smart Minnesota wanting us to protest something that,
That's an auto bill?
yes,
Yeah.
auto bill.
Yeah, I've been tracking that. The bottle bill actually would, I think, hurt us.
That's
Because
what this letter really states.
We collect aluminum. We make money, probably $30,000 and $40,000 a year off aluminum from what I truck through those drop sites.
And
So,
what does this bill do?
well, they want to go to container deposits for all plastics, you know, like water jugs and everything, plus aluminum cans. Like a nickel a can. Yeah. So,
I see scores going up.
yes.
First time in like 10 years, isn't it?
Since it started in 90, that started in about 93.
What's going on?
Score.
The score grant money that we get, that's in 392, the recycling.
Normally it was $55,950. It's now with inflation, they finally, the state has agreed to give us some of that. So it's going up to about 15,000 there, 16. The only thing I can think offhand, and and it's such a big, it's an if. Recycling centers, basically, we burn used oil. Last year hit us very hard, and it took my surplus, where we didn't have but about maybe about 50 gallons left. And I usually have, at the end of the year, about 250, 300. If I don't get enough oil, then I'm going to have to go to, and it's not in here, I am going to probably have to go to a diesel or some kind of fuel. Because I only got one of the very old ceiling furnaces that LP. It's not enough to heat that building. So if that does happen and I, you know, that I don't get enough oil, then I'll have to come to the board for some help on that. Like I said, we got by last year, and like I said, it really did hit our supplies. It's coming in slowly, but
We bought extra sweaters or boots.
No, that's the water pipes and the
Yeah.
fence and everything else down
Oh,
there.
we know about water pipes.
Yeah. I did put in a couple spots in here too, is I do need, in the maintenance portion of it, I've got some building upkeep and maintenance to do. Some doors and frames and stuff are all rotted out that need to be replaced. I did get a couple quotes there and I did put that in here that need to be dealt with there. The frames are so rotted that the doors are falling off, and then one is being at the front door, I can just about push my whole front door in. I'm gonna have to do some building maintenance. I also thought about, when that's coming too, is our drop site, some of our buildings, those housing, the warming sheds. The first ones were built with wood, and what I need to do is, I think probably not this year so much, probably the following year, talk to Craig and see if I can't buy the material and have them go back and re-tin them.
Just get on the schedule and move on. They're busy.
Yeah, no. So.
Sounds good.
Correct. I don't know if there's any other questions for the boards?
No, I think you do a good job.
Thanks, Rick. Thank you.
Oh, yes. I'll send you a new one.
Okay.
Because it shows up on your monthly report.
Yeah.
This was,
Right.
a new creation.
I have had those most of those.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't change. This was just a different spreadsheet.
Assuming we're next, correct?
Should we take a recess?
Or you guys want to take a break, that's fine.
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh.
That was good.
How are you with that? Go ahead.
They're just messing with you.
Just messing with you.
I brought my drink.
Yeah, the laughter, you look at so many numbers after a while.
I guess the only thing I was thinking too was, we were questioned by the auditors why we hadn't increased our police state aid budget when we've been getting 88,000.
Because we really don't know where it comes from.
We don't know how they.
But it has been there.
It has been around 88,000 for the last couple of years. We can certainly change that, absolutely.
85.
Okay.
It's just when you make it 85 and it comes in at 75, what do you do?
So like 10,000.
That really hasn't ever happened,
Right.
looking at the history of police state aid.
Oh, that's
But then again, on the fees for the sheriff, it's budgeted at 20, but you never really
Take
collect
20.
So I would say make that one 18.
Which one? Oh, yeah, I see that.
Yep,
Okay, what are you changing up, Bob, on the police aid?
making that 88.
52, 56, they're gonna make that 85,000.
Okay,
And then they're gonna make 5501, 18,000.
okay.
And then, I don't know, the accident reports.
And then it's always been 2,000.
Well, the budget has always been 2,000, but we haven't collected 2,000, so, you know, it kind of inflates the revenue, and we don't, we pretty much.
What do you think we should put that at 1,500?
I would go.
1,600?
Mhm.
All right. So line item 5576, we're gonna make that 1,600.
So we still come out
Right.
a little bit.
Yeah, because you increased 80 to 85 and 5,000.
I would increase the donations though.
Normally we normally get some from Hoedown and Setting Eye after the second half, and Heights and Lions too, but we only took in 3750 and 13.
Just changed it to 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Split the difference.
So line item 5752 will be 3,000.
Those were just my thoughts.
Yep.
The only other significant change that you can see on that first page is telephone at $4,900, and that's for air cards for the computers.
Covered that last week and why we were increasing.
What was it for?
For the air cards for our new LTG system.
I did talk to, oh, that's in, never mind, it's not in this one, it's in the next one, where it's in jail. We'll get to it.
And other than that, I don't see anything that really stands out.
Oh, the 6288 software license renewal and support, that's for LTG project, so that was covered last week in that handout I had too.
Right.
So
Should we change that line, or is that good enough? Is that good enough?
that's what it is.
The 6348, is that from that too?
6340. No, radio maintenance
That's
agreement.
just regular ones that.
That's what happened is we had 1, 2, 3, 4 radios that were under warranty that do the paging for all the fire departments and stuff. They went off warranty. So now, instead of being a no charge item on the maintenance agreement, now of course they're off warranty, so that went up. And then we also added the microwave radios, which weren't on there before. Other than that, the rest of them are all downs.
I did that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then you move that, I was gonna ask you that, Carol, the permit to carry, you move that money into our accounting or some way?
No, I just, that, the budget on that should always show as zero. We don't want to show revenue or expense to the county because it's designated by law.
Right.
So it goes into that.
Because it was showing that we had
Right.
$2,000 revenue and.
I guess as long as we're at that line item, we'll start a short conversation about that revenue. It's not really revenue, it's earmarked funds. We're anticipating some potential for additional need for clerical staff.
Which is probably something you should address through personnel first.
We already did. We did. But I just wanted to ask about it, since we're talking about budget. Part of the money from the permits, one of the allowed expenses under the permit is salary. We've never utilized it to pay part of Carrie's salary. She's does that work, but we've never had the amount of permits that we've seen over the last couple of years. It's dramatically increased from what we used to have, doubled. And I don't know if it's going to, I guess that this next election will tell if it gets worse or it gets better, as far as people being concerned that they need to have a permit to carry. It creates a lot of work in the fact that not only does she have to issue that many more permits each year, but she is required to review each permit every year. And they're good for 5 years. So if you look at 5-year, the total number of permits over 5 years, she has to review each one every year. So she did 260 last year. If that continues, pretty soon she's going to be doing 12 to 1,300 permit reviews every year. So her workload is continuing to go up. We're starting a conversation on the potential to maybe hire a 0.6 employee to help alleviate some of the clerical work that Carrie probably won't have time for. And also, it may be a good time to look at some clerical assistance for Mark in the jail, because we're starting to house prisoners from Winona. And we just heard that.
We had talks next week with Fillmore County. They just had their jail inspection, and they don't have a jail nurse, so some of their prisoners need some attention, so they'll be bringing, we finally get to make some money from Fillmore County.
So they'll be bringing some prisoners over. Along with that, if the La Crosse County thing goes through. And again, we're just, city, excuse me. And we're just trying to start this conversation so that we don't get, nobody gets blindsided. So Mark will also have a chance to utilize this assistant for billing, helping him do the things that he needs to do.
Tracking the expenses for the jail, all the prisoner medical, things that we bill back the other counties that are going to choose the board. And this is something that really has come up in the last week and a half. Looking at budget time, it kind of came out more. But there is a potential to use some of the permit to carry money to offset salary. So we could potentially use the permit money to offset Carrie's salary, which would kind of free up money to pay towards another position. The other thing that's come up recently, the chief judge, actually about 6 months ago now, the chief judge signed an order that all transcripts of anything audio or video that we're presenting would be transcribed if you're going to present in court. We're seeing some of that work start to come to bear, but we use more and more technology. Everything we do is recorded. Squad videos are recorded. If you want to present that in court, which is the whole reason why you have it, the judge now says it needs a transcript of what was on there. You can't just submit the video or the audio recording. You got to have a verbatim transcript of what was said.
So not just so you can see it, you can read it, which is really interesting, but that's what they're saying.
We've talked to all the other PDs as well. They're all in the same boat, that it has the potential to increase workload. And they were all interested in, if the county hired somebody additional, that they would be willing to have us do all the transcriptions, and we would bill back for the time spent doing their transcription work. So this is something that needs to go to personnel and needs to be discussed. I assume that's why Tess showed up. Needs to be discussed, and I did meet with Tess and talk with her briefly this morning about it. But looking down the future, and since this is our first budget meeting, we broached the topic today. We don't need to get into exactly how we're going to pay for it, but we want to make you somewhat aware of the potential where we believe we should look at it as far as how we could pay for this position, maybe not entirely, but maybe start out, that's not a good idea, start out with a temporary employee, a 67-day employee, to see what the workload is, and kind of get a judge on, is it a 0.3 need, is it a 0.6 need, is it a full-time need? And then La Crosse City just started issuing warrants. So their judge hadn't been issuing warrants for 2 years. So I imagine that the La Crosse City prisoner contract is going to come to the forefront shortly, because they're going to pay twice as much to house in La Crosse. So we're going to have that need to do some accounting work there too, and keep track of that.
So are you thinking 3 separate hires, or are you thinking one
No.
hire to do all 3?
One hire to do the 3 positions.
The 3 things.
The permit to carry, the jailer, and the
Well,
transcription.
Carrie would continue to do the permit to carry because it takes a different level of.
But I mean, just for helping her.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, so to help her, to help Mark with jailing stuff, right?
And the transcription.
Gotcha.
And how to determine that need is going to be a tough thing to figure out. The need goes up and down, especially on the transcription part. Currently, we're making it work. After the first of the year and changes, maybe we're going to
See how
have
the
trials.
thing works, yeah.
Might be more demand for it, might be less. But it varies so much, you can't say. We're noticed for probably 15 to 20 jury trials a month, but we don't have it. So we have the potential to have a lot of transcriptions, but we currently don't have it. That could change. The PDs are in the same boat. They don't have anybody. They don't have extra staff to do this. They've actually used a contract out with our 2 current staff to do it on their own time at home. But looking in ways to consolidate and maybe do some better service if we had that position or that person. So, first part of the discussion.
All right. So the permits are done, miscellaneous fees, I don't know that, we never know exactly what is going to happen there.
The miscellaneous, that's the 6,000 for.
Oh, wait, that's what we always going to pay, I apologize. And the DUI forfeitures.
The contingency fund money, I don't understand where that actually comes from. We get little checks here and there from the court every once in a while. And I don't understand where it comes from.
We just keep coding it to this account.
It says contingency and that's where it goes. Can't tell you where it comes from or why it comes to us.
Obviously, somebody pays a fine or something.
Something, but.
Open waters, fees are all the same, 205.
I see those like, Darlene sends out a report,
Right.
monthly report, I see it on there, sheriff's contingency, you get a piece of the action.
Yeah, we did a little that every now and then,
Yep.
just staple the receipt to it.
I actually get very little. Such a peaceful group out there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Not one, the forfeiture line, that's something that, you know, you can't really budget for.
You raised the medical examiners to what it needs to be, 3%. So the medical examiners went up 3%. And then we get to jail. I think the only thing that really sticks out there is probably salaries, wages, and benefits. Other than that, medical fees, we went up a little in medical fees. We're at 30,000 this year already, and that's through the 6, right? 6 months through June. So we're over what we projected as far as average. So we did raise that 10,000.
So has anything ever come of being able to do the whole?
If you have insurance reimbursement, not much.
Well, it sounded like a really good
In
idea.
jail, I mean, in the hospital, inpatient, right?
Right, it sounded like a really good idea when we first heard of it, and then it turned into, if the prisoner on their own seeks it, and only for admissions to hospitals will be covered. So if they have a heart attack and they go to the hospital and they get admitted and they have open heart surgery, they would pay that bill if the prisoner applied on their own. We can't apply for them.
What you're saying is we should just let it go, and if they decide to go in, great, if they don't, you know?
Pretty much.
No, we have to take them.
We still have.
Well, they volunteer. We have to take them.
Hey, do you want to go? I mean, and that truly is kind of the dilemma that we see in society no matter what, is the fact that the hospital wants to get paid for their services. They want to build a county, the county wants to get paid, and yet who's really,
You know, the part that really upset me is that we can't help them apply.
right. Yeah,
So
they have to be willing.
They have to do it on their own. We can't fill out the paperwork for them and say, here, you're gonna qualify for this, your bill will be paid, all you gotta do is sign here. We can't do that. They have to seek it on their own. Well,
Like, they can't do just like an autofill form, when they look, it's just autofills or
Yes.
something?
so it sounded like we were really gonna have something worked out with MA last year, and it just kind of, boy, it sounded good.
Yeah.
Yeah, our hopes all up.
Carol, yesterday when we were talking about trash, we didn't know where it got paid from. It's paid out of this.
And I talked to Tess this morning about it too, and she's willing to take,
6253.
she's willing to take that 2,500 because all the building's trash is going into our dumpster and we're paying the bill. And so that should be a building expense. And when I talked to her, she said that she was fine with that if it came out of ours and went into her budget.
Why, in order to have it come out of yours and go into hers, you have to let me know beforehand. I need it somewhere, so we have money there, and then
Right.
we can transfer it.
Okay, but hold on, why is the sheriff's department paying for trash?
We've always been a separate building. We've always had our own separate building,
Yeah.
so they have their own trash collection, so they always pick it up. And when we got to a new building, just kept it. This is.
But I mean, like, again, I'm just trying to make things.
I don't know that highway has a trash collection.
Well, I'm just
Or
thinking,
the
like,
building.
I mean, building,
They do.
but I mean, building maintenance, we do maintenance for every building, out of building maintenance. Why? I mean, that's my only thing, is just keeping things, because like we had this confusion of who's paying the trash. Well, it only makes sense it should come out of building maintenance.
Not necessarily, because the jail actually produces more, probably, garbage.
Well, I know, but what I'm getting at is that no matter what building or the Houston County government as a whole, should it be one budget that's.
Well, it's kind of, I understand the fact that maybe we were the generator of most of the garbage, but if you had one bill coming to building maintenance and they broke it out, this is how much we pay for this building, one person has to process one bill.
That's what I'm thinking.
Instead of us spending time processing a bill, highway department, there's time involved in every employee along the line processing that bill as well.
Well, I'm thinking too, like mowing lawns or something, well,
We don't
this
do it
building
now.
paid for this lawn, this building paid for that. I mean, it's kind of all, I'm just thinking
But it's all
simple.
split between buildings, that's the whole thing, the snow plowing is split
But the
between
only thing I'm
buildings.
saying is it should go to the building. We budget by building.
Right.
We have how many different campuses, or, how many buildings on, so
Yeah,
it
it
should
could
go.
be the CJC buildings budget, not the sheriff's budget.
Right.
I guess, I don't know, maybe it doesn't make sense here, but I guess I see that we could just, well, like,
I think
for
so.
any department, it should be a building or the facility.
Sentence to Serve is doing the lawn maintenance on, I believe, all the buildings now, aren't they?
No, John was just kind of.
John was just cutting yesterday.
Yeah.
But Craig had done it, but we're the only ones that pay for Sentence to Serve.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody supplements us for Sentence to Serve.
Well, I agree, and you talked to Tess about the trash and
Well, it
it's
used
just
to
a
be,
matter.
since it used to be paid for
Right.
laundry, right?
It used to be free. And we didn't have to pay anything for it.
But,
Now we pay a lot.
It was an additional levy money that was given to your department, it's not like you had to offset your fees to
Right.
pay for this sentence.
Right, we didn't have to make.
It just comes out of our budget and makes sense.
I don't have a problem either way, but I would agree that we should probably just put trash collection as trash collection.
For the CJC building, like.
Yeah, you can see how much is, highway department, here's how much it costs, and there's the CCS building, and this is their trash. I mean,
You need a.
I don't know, I'm just thinking it's simplified things, so we know where it is, and I see trash collection for this building, lawn maintenance for this building, snow removal for this building, versus by department. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay,
That was the big discussion, the big debate.
okay, so jail wise, big things,
The only thing is, we're trying to find two vans for 30,000 now. And
well, we might have got you just one van, just now.
from,
I think they do long trips also.
yeah, we do a lot.
This one's.
How many miles do they have on it?
A lot.
How many's a lot?
I thought he said, wasn't it?
180.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
at 240.
Both of our vans are 220, 240.
Yeah, which is good, I mean, we're using them, but yeah.
Why do you have to transport them all?
That's interesting.
We would have thought that when we opened the jail, our transports would have went down. They went up, I swear.
Well,
The distance went down maybe, but the amount went up.
Yeah.
we transport them to the hospital, we transport them to this and that, and if you have a juvenile that can't be in the locker room, they get transported to Duluth or Bemidji or somewhere that they have an open spot home. Then we have to go back and get them the next day because they have court. And it's a lot of transportation.
Or Fergus Falls was a good one, 6.5 hours one way. And,
You spent the night and then brought it back the next day.
yeah, and they come here for a 5-minute
Yeah.
hearing.
And one thing else we have is ITVs.
Yeah, right.
Did you eliminate that? Why?
The subject of the hearing has the right to refuse ITV.
First appearance, he has to be seen. Well, that's not true either because ITV does get used but he can refuse to see activity. He can say, I want to be there in person.
And that's what they do. So they get a trophy ride for 13 hours. And they get pot and they get,
What?
because we have to feed them.
Give them water.
Food, water, bread.
Food and water. Yeah. So we're still trying to find vehicles. Actually, the state bid has come out for 15s here shortly, but the 14s, they're selling a new van for like 20, just over 20 grand for a new Dodge Caravan, which is the only van you get anymore.
How many do you transport at a time? You have to have a van?
Yeah, the vans work so much better,
Especially when we put them in a chair.
especially when we got to take the naughty chair with. Yeah, they get strapped into this rolling chair that's actually like a dolly.
Are you talking kind of like the
You see it on jail.
Yeah.
But it fits in the van.
It fits in the van.
So then you can put it in the van and then we strap it to the floor.
handle it here?
Yeah.
So,
And we do that maybe once every couple months. We have to have somebody in that chair.
do you guys, I mean, is there like to find like good lease backs or something like that?
We did anything. The last two REOs, they were
the district returns.
Okay, cool.
That's what we
That's what we
did.
look for, right?
Yeah.
But we certainly look for those, they just happen to be.
The price has been so high. They were actually more expensive than buying a new on the contract.
Another quick question, with those vans, you guys don't have lights and stuff on those, do you?
No,
It's just,
That'll
you
be
have
like
like the dividers?
Hydrogen or radial.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't have any of the emergency equipment.
Okay.
So we're still looking to fulfill our 14 budget numbers there. And then projects line goes down because we're splitting that up amongst all the other line items that we have.
Prisoners meals going up just with more inmates or what's?
Well, participation of lacrosse and we're housing one owner right now. So that's, we know that's going to go up. some.
Technically, that kind of gets reimbursed because that's part of the daily fee, right?
What line item are you going to start putting that in? Prison board.
We should probably have a new line item for revenue.
For revenue.
Still, it's just a fee.
Just in this line fee.
You want it to go in there?
Okay.
So if we're boarding prisoners and we're increasing the costs of the meals, shouldn't we be increasing the fees line?
Well, hopefully. Hopefully we're not doing it for free.
Well, what are you figuring for $7,000 a meal? How many prisoners are you thinking that's gonna?
Not many. You see that bill?
Well, for a year, it's.
Yeah.
But you gotta remember when we hit 26 meals, then we actually pay
Less.
almost less than we do for
18.
18, I think is the break point. So 18 to 26 actually costs you less if you get 26, so we agree.
What do you think that should be, 50?
It'll go up, but not incrementally to how many prisoners you get.
I don't know.
Except,
But we make 36 without boarding anybody.
I wouldn't put it too high,
yeah, I guess.
because we need to find a pattern, or have some idea of.
Well, you know, you're raising the meals by 7. I
You should
would
at least collect that.
I think you should at least collect that, but I would make it
42?
10. I would make it
45?
45.
So line item 251, 5501, would go to 45,000.
5,501? Oh, I see, way at the top.
Right.
Yeah.
Revenue.
Instead of 45?
Correct.
Yeah.
And hopefully it'll be,
More.
I'm hoping that it has the potential to be a lot more.
Yeah, but at least that gets us somewhere.
And last is emergency management, court security, and there's no change there other than salary.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you at 1. You do anyway, right?
know we're waiting.
This is the last one.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
We have to do. And one further.
So Shar doesn't have one.
You too. Get your one too. It doesn't have any numbers in it.
We'll have to add these to the budget.
We'll have to add this paper and supplies to the budget.
That's okay, I just won't charge you for something else that I don't charge you.
We'll just say it's a wash.
Okay.
Anyway, before we take a look at the numbers and you can grill us on the numbers, I just wanted to give this to you today to just kind of let you know that this is just something that we put together. We'll be using this for all of our students, any new advisory board members that we have, and kind of as a commissioner orientation as well, just to the agency programs and services. I'm not going to bore you, you can read this.
Surely like this.
Yeah, but I really do want to call your attention to a couple things in here. As you kind of page through the vision, mission, and goals, you can see that we have our vision statement, mission statement, and our new logo with our new brand in there, which is Partnering for Health Every Person Every Day. That was something that we just created within the last few months. Next to that, we give you kind of a brief of really the public health framework, which is the policy, systems, and environment change. And not only just to combat chronic disease, but we're really looking at this agency-wide with all of our programs and services. It's just basically the business framework for which we are attempting to operate. We get to the core mandates and core services. What I put in here for you is just kind of government's responsibility for public health. What are the things that we really are as a public health board and an agency mandated to do? This was just revised in January of 14, but it really does highlight those areas of public health responsibility of those kinds of things that we are supposed to be promoting, preventing, and assuring public's health. And then also the whole national move at this time is really towards an accreditation of public health and public health standards. And so we're busy kind of looking at that, trying to figure out how we're going to get that done. I think the only county in the state that has that done accreditation for public health at this point is Hennepin County. And the state is still working on, the Department of Health is working on their national accreditation as well. But it's something that influences our budget as we talk about some training and core competencies. It's all linked to this whole piece of accreditation. The other piece that's next to that is just the inventory of core functions. I hope this will be helpful as you think about our various programs in public health, which of those can be contracted or other options, other administrative appeal rights, time limits, state federal monitoring, fund loss for non-compliance, any specific procedures, if there's a waiting list, and then kind of the caseload size. Which just gives you kind of an inventory of those things that we currently do. And then the next page, it just talks about mandates and core functions. It's kind of the process that we go through as we think about what services are mandates, what are not, what we continue to provide, and what are some of those things that we have some availability or some options to let go when there are other providers in the area that can take care of that. And then we put in there, next to that, the structures and contracts. We have our organizational chart there, you can see. We have a list for you of our current contracted agencies that we provide services with and have contracts with. And then the last section of this is really what we put together is just a one-page synopsis of each of our programs and services. So this can be used as a resource. We've given you kind of highlighted the description, the population served, the services provided, those key measures. How do we know, are we really on target with those things that we are supposed to be providing? The funding sources. And so all of the programs and services, including some of our more current grants, for example, with our SHIP and our TZB grant, we've also included those are our new things that we added to this description. We're going to, in the process, our paid interns are in the process of working this up and updating the county's website so this information is available to the public as well. And then the last section is just those frequently used friendly acronyms that public health has, you know, there's never a shortage of those. And believe me, we have really pared this down. We could have given you about 20 pages of acronyms, but those most commonly used. So anyway, we wanted to give this to you as a resource and just to let you know that as things, as updates become available, we'll bring you updates and you can keep them in there. So that's what we have for you.
And then I guess there was just one change this morning that Loretta had given after the sheet came out. So the bottom line on the last page should be $22,000 less, so it will be $193,27. I have everything when she sent me the email about the additional revenue.
See that again, what?
You know, it's on the way back page. Down at the bottom here, it says 212,327.
Yeah.
That should be 193,327.
Just a few comments maybe that I would make before our financial guru who kind of takes it away is just a kind of a recap for 2015. I think basically the good news is that we're coming in asking for less money than what we have in the past over our current year's budget. And I think that's great news considering that we also have put some additions in here, and we'll talk about those as we go through. We'll also be preparing a budget narrative to give you just really more specifics and deliverables for your review and consideration as we move forward to whatever the next step is in your budget preparations. I think as you're doing your financial study and the detail of the activity, I think that you would want to know exactly what our deliverables are and what our intentions are for levy money as well as our programs and services. Kind of for 2015, what we anticipate is we have a loss of a pre-concession grant that we had in the past. That was $13,000. The other thing that's going to change this year is you know that there is this 5-year switch back and forth with the CHS administration between Fillmore and Houston County. And also with that, besides the CHS administration, it also includes the fiscal agent, which Loretta has been doing for the last 5 years, and there's a $5,000 tag with that goes back and forth. Apparently that was something that was decided a while ago. I wish that we could keep it, honestly. I wish that as long as we're doing it anyway. And I think...
How does Fillmore County feel about that?
I had some conversation with Lampa. I think she feels that her board wants to have it back.
They want the $5,000.
I would actually even...
Where did it? I thought you mean like Fillmore pays us 5,000?
No, from the state, because we're in the CHP, 2 counties, you get an extra $5,000.
Oh, okay, okay, so,
It's
and
always
we've
there.
gotten that because we've been
Because
administrating.
it was prior to this last 5
No,
years, they had it for over 20 years, so.
Yeah,
Well, and it was voluntarily,
it was rotated.
whoever,
Yeah.
Yeah, that was between those 2 directors.
yeah.
But maybe that's something in the future that, you know, in our CHP meeting that we can have some more conversation.
When do we meet again?
December, or is it November?
Did we bring that up for discussion?
I think we
Yeah,
did.
well, why does it? Okay, so here's a question. If you get $5,000 for whoever's doing the administrative work on it, can we just, to keep it all fair, say, okay, for 2 years you have it, for 2 years we have it, versus
Well,
they
that's
have
what
it
they
for
do
2
is 5.
But
I mean, right now they say
It's
5.
You're changing the record keeping
Yeah,
stuff.
that's the hard part.
Mhm.
And even, you know, we have approximately between 15 and 20 grants, most of them are joint. So then you have to notify each of those grant managers of the state to change where the money gets funneled to.
And then it gets delayed.
And how
And that time it
and
took
how
them.
do
Does the
other-
$5,000 cover the cost that we have in providing the administration?
Yes.
There's
it
been a
does.
cost.
I
It does
think
because she
does.
has it all set up.
Yeah.
But in 5 years, when you get it back again,
Then it switches, everything switches.
The problem in Fillmore County is I mean, at least here, you know, I have access to the state system. And I check that every day for when monies come in. And then, you know, I document that and then I issue a voucher for them to get paid. In Fillmore County, only the auditor treasurer office looks at that. Because the past history before we got it was a lot of things got missed. Because the person in the auditor treasurer office doesn't have the same knowledge as the person working right in the department. They aren't looking for it, they're just trying to figure out where it may go. So I mean, things got missed and, you know, we got paid maybe 10 months later when someone caught it. So that's one of my concerns.
And I think it has the potential certainly to impact our cash flow. You know, when we keep it, we can get the money in and out pretty rapidly.
And we're doing that for them also, correct?
Right.
I really think we need to bring it up for discussion.
Yeah, I do too.
And I think, you know, honestly, we
Discuss
need
to keep it permanently?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got it set up, and we don't have to change addresses for all the,
And it's not broken, you know?
No, it
Right.
isn't.
So why are we switching?
Yeah.
that's just part of the original.
And even if it's, you know, I would even be good with us keeping the fiscal piece of it, and then can do the CHS admin if that works, and take the 5,000. It's worth it to us, I think,
To keep it.
to keep the fiscal portion of it. It's been a real advantage, actually, because we know where we're at, we're used to the programs, we're keeping, you know, much closer tabs on where things are as we go along.
Offer to split it.
Well, there was actually an issue with our auditors, wasn't there? Because Fillmore was using like estimates when they were trying to submit their.
But they're not audited by the state auditors.
I
They're
know,
private.
but because we are audited by the state, they questioned,
Exactly.
you know, it ended up being not pretty for us, just because Fillmore does estimates and we do actual cash, you know.
I think the other piece just to keep into consideration too is, you know, Lantha has made it pretty well known that within the next probably 2 years she'll be retiring, which would mean there'd be a new person there.
We're getting a new person
Which means
besides.
would likely come back here anyway. I mean, why would you give that to a brand new person that's maybe not seasoned with public health? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. But that's something that can be discussed.
Go ahead and put it on the agenda.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, that's what we planned for, is that $5,000 would go away back to Fillmore. We planned for the 1% cost of living. The things that we don't know about yet are, we have a U-Care grant that we've submitted, and we should know within the next week to days. That's a $12,500 potential addition. The other big thing that I know that you've been hearing a lot about this, especially from our friends at Human Services, about this whole MinChoice. MinChoices is that universal screening tool that will now be implemented, I think it's September 7th in there. So all the different, it's a universal screening rather than to have one for personal care attendants, one for long-term care. It's one universal tool. The good news about that is we think that will be really promising for us as far as an increase in some revenues. The first 2 payments that we've had are better than what we have been getting. So it's hard to tell. They're pretty secretive about how they're reimbursing us, what their friendly formula is, but we're being conservative in our budget on that. But nonetheless, we believe that that's going to be some help as well. The other thing that we're doing a little differently for 2015 is that we are spreading out our costs and attempting to capture more administrative and indirect expenses when allowable. I think that's probably a new practice for the agency. So we will be doing that, and you know, please feel free to ask me anytime we bring forward a grant request to you.
And on that note, because most of our grants, we have not heard the actual dollar amount for next year yet, so I'm using this year's. And for that same reason, I didn't include the administrative yet, so those changes will be coming.
So what we have before you today, I guess kind of the bottom line is, before we kind of go through this with you, is it's a pretty conservative budget. And so even though we're asking for less, it's still conservative, and, you know, we hope for a lot better than what we put before you.
I think you've done a very good job.
Thanks.
This has been a few years project, hasn't it, Loretta?
Well,
Trying to, you know.
it's more itemized by
Yeah.
actual area now, so we can, you know, it's still a work in progress. It's the first year we've been doing this, so, I mean, I'm finding a lot of things are still getting, especially when it comes to recording their time for payroll, they're putting it in the wrong area. We're working on that, so hopefully next year it'll look a lot more accurate in that respect. Do you have any other specific questions, concerns?
How's it going to affect your home health aides as far as, aren't a lot of them just, do you have to watch their hours as far as getting up too high with
If
any
they don't have
insurance
business to
stuff?
make, they don't work, you know, so that of course makes them all part-time.
Right.
Different FTEs. I don't,
But their FTE, you know, like their benefit level for 2014 is calculated based on the hours that they actually worked in 2013. You know,
Next
so that
year.
we don't have to adjust benefits every month
Right.
based on how much they work. It just worked out best for them that way.
but for 2015, you know, you're getting full-time insurance.
If they're over 30 hours.
If they're over 30 hours.
So it would be, you know, the recommendation to the ones that are, their FTE is over 30 hours to give them hours before you give others to,
Right.
get them as close to.
So you guys are
full-time.
working with that whole,
You know, that whole home care business is a challenge because
based on caseload.
It's based on
You can't
caseload,
control
and
that.
a lot of times, you know, somebody will go into a nursing home, and that may be somebody that they were seeing 2 or 3 times a week. Well, it doesn't take much of that to really flip it, you know? One of the things that, you know, we've talked a little bit about is, and are moving in that direction of transitioning out of homemaking. And, you know, we have a partner with Neighbors in Action and Crescent, and kind of spearheading some local grassroots efforts here in the Caledonia area. Spring Grove has their own kind of companion program, and I think the idea really is as we get this partnership together, I would really like to see us be maybe perhaps a little more purists in our home health aid work. I don't know that we need to be sending our home health aides out to do dusting and vacuuming and those kinds of chore provided services when we have another provider that can do that and actually do it better with more comprehensive services than what we're able to provide, and keep our home health aides really for just doing pure home health aid work, which is personal cares, you know, therapy, treatments, dressing changes, ambulating folks, bathing, those kinds of things. It's just, our reimbursement is better, you know, when we do that, when we stick to just pure home health aid work. So that's, you know, that's kind of our goal for this next year, is to make sure that we don't create a gap, and to make sure that we have a really good service in place. And you know, I have a lot of trust and faith in what I'm already hearing from the Neighbors in Action folks. And I think that's a win for everybody. Plus, as we partner with them, they become more familiar with the services that we provide. I would anticipate that we would end up with more referrals from them. Good deal. Now we just got to get the Houston area. You know, Spring Grove has got their Spring Grove Communications, that their volunteer network kind of gearing up. And so I think kind of the last frontier with regards to this kind of volunteer effort is really that Houston area. But we did meet with...
You have to talk to Justin.
Yeah. we did.
What are you doing in your spare time?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sleeping.
It's gonna get worse.
Yeah, I know, that's just one spare time for you.
Yeah. But we do think that actually it's really much better for your constituents to have this type of arrangement in place, because they're able to provide a lot more than what we are. They can do transportation, you know, they can do that outside work, they can do painting, screens, all those things that we just don't have the capacity.
It's just trying to do against them.
Right. But we did spend some time with Rotary last Friday, and there were several folks there that were interested. I think some shakers and movers that were willing to sit down with us. and,
Sandy was
Neighbors in
really
Action.
impressed.
Yeah, it was a really great group, and I think, we know that what works best is when those grassroots efforts come from within the community and they figure out how to get this done, and I think we can do this. We can do this. Good.
That's good.
Would you want to grill us or something? Come on.
That comes later.
That's coming later.
Yeah.
They want to eat.
Okay, really.
Yeah, you see, the new meeting is a good one to have. I just want to eat that one.
We aren't too grilling at all. Any other questions?
No.
Looks good. Come a long ways, hasn't it, Loretta, as far as you actually have little numbers like everybody else? That was quite a transition. You missed all that part, Mary.
Not really.
But you saw it in other parts, yes.
That's good. It's all good. Done? Is that it?
I'll let you know.
Now let us know. Okay. Charlie, you want one of these? No.
So we should have a motion for adjourn.
Yes.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Well, I'm still thinking.